We're checking to see if the stream has started. Stream has started. How are you? Thanks for tuning in, guys. Thanks for being here. If you're watching this from the recording, had a great day today. Good day today. Yesterday was such a roller coaster of a day. There was like good news, bad news, all the kind of stuff. Today, went and got some groceries, did a bunch of yoga. Well, not a bunch of yoga, a little bit of yoga, honestly, but doing any amount of yoga, it finds all the stress that exists inside of you, and it just, like, wrings it right out, right? Like, my shoulders, and I always, throughout my abdomen area, right through the diaphragm, there's always energy there that's just, like, vibrating away. So I'm trying... I always recommend to people, man, like, at least attempt, fail at it, do really badly, right? Do some yoga and just do really badly at it. Take 10 minutes, not even like a full, like, crazy yoga thing. Like, find the easiest, most basic yoga video you can find. DoYogaWithMe.com has a bunch. Like, find the most just, like, bare bones video that's like 20-30 minutes long, and then only do 10 minutes of it and just like lie and sleep through the rest of it. Don't even try, and you're gonna feel better. It's gonna take a lot of the anxiety and the angst that is built up in your body and just like let it go. And who knows, maybe you'll have like a deep cry. Maybe you'll weep like a baby. I didn't weep like a baby this time. So we'll see how this goes. Just gonna double check, make sure. Yep, excellent connection. Stream's coming through just great. Perfect. And looks like I have a viewer. So far, so good. Well, paying 20% of your paycheck to insurance, equal good, capitalist, affordable. Paying 4% of your paycheck to Medicare, bad, communist, too expensive. Americans really are the most propagandized people in the world. Hi, Lonnie. How you doing today? Thanks for tuning in. Good to see you. Hope things are going well for you. Yeah, this is the oddness of the Western world, and this happens here in Canada as well. We only ever when it comes to doing like a government program, or when it comes to putting something forward, we care about what's it going to cost? What's the number? Give me the cost. And then we never like compute savings into that. Like, we never think, okay, how much are we spending right now versus how much does the new program cost? And we don't actually compare those two numbers on like a large scale. It's very weird. Like, this is exactly what's happening in the healthcare conversation down in the States. They're like, oh, that's such a big expensive number for single-payer healthcare, and they're like paying double that right now. It's just like, it's obscene. It's obscene, Lonnie. I tell you what, I'm glad you're doing well. That's good to hear, Lonnie. That's good to hear. Odd times, man. Odd times. AT&T donated almost $3 million to 193 anti-gay politicians. Like, this is why billionaires are dangerous, right? It's dangerous to have even a single billionaire in your society, because they can donate like a $3 million donation for a billionaire, for somebody like Jeff Bezos. It's absolutely nothing, right? So if you have like a billionaire who is like anti-gay or like anti-women, right? Like anti-anything, pick it. They can just plow money into that on a massive level. So I just don't understand why it is, like, in the basic income conversation that I keep having, right? I keep getting told by people that, oh, these poor people, if they get even a little tiny shred of money, right, that they'll do something nefarious or something bad will happen. And then they'll turn around and defend a single individual having like $200 billion. And it's like, so if a poor person has enough money to eat, they're going to do something that has negative social consequences. But if a wealthy person gets so much money that they can literally buy the entire Congress, the entire Senate, and the presidency, that's fine. Like they're not going to do anything nefarious with that. That's just going to be completely normal, right? Like we live in this really, really delusional period of time where like there are people who just like have like mental blocks, and it's really clear that they do. 2 years ago, Ottawa aimed to lower the price of wireless and internet. Not anymore. Yeah. No, I mean, why would they? Like, why would the billionaire class, like, they're charging us the highest amount of any other nation. Like, we're not gonna suddenly get lower internet or lower wireless while doing nothing about it. Like, if we literally looked at our politicians and said, we will vote you out if you do not do this, then they might do something. But we're so gulled and so like completely tepid and cowardly. We keep voting liberal and we keep voting conservative. Like, what do we think's going to happen? They both agree that wireless and internet prices should be the highest in the world. Like they both are completely on board with the idea that we should not have affordable wireless or internet rates, and they'll both fight against the idea that those things be nationalized and become public utilities, right? Oh, I know, buddy. My little dog is sitting over here and he's whining at me because he wants peanut butter. Isn't that right, buddy? Well, too bad. You've had peanut butter today, buddy. Come lie down. You're a good boy. Come lie down. Good boy, buddy. Good boy. He's greedy. He's a greedy little guy. He just wants all the peanut butter. Kirsten Cinema goes on delusional rant about filibuster. This is the woman who voted against. The minimum wage increase in the United States. She was one of the Democrats that did that, so it's not surprising to learn that she's like completely delusional. Hi Jeff, how you doing today? Good to see you. What do I think of Annamie Paul? Annamie Paul is actually one of the few politicians, few leaders I've met personally. She as a person seems very powerful. Like there's a presence about her, right? She's got a power about her naturally as a person. And I think that's a big reason why she ends up becoming the leader of that party while not actually having a seat or anything. Hey Ruth, how you doing? Good to see you. So she's very impressive personally, I think. But the more I learn about her in terms of her policies, the less I like her, frankly. Like, the less I'm impressed less and less as time goes on. And I feel like as people learn more and more about her and her policies and what she's standing for actually, the less impressive she'll become. I think that she is, she's... I think that she's actually going to do okay in the Green Party because I think most people are not going to pay much attention to her policies, and that she is actually going to end up being a good force because she still supports a basic income. She still supports like environmental issues. The issues that the Green Party were pushing forward under Elizabeth May, she is also going to push forward. And so in terms of, like, she's going to be a good ally to have on the debate stage. She's going to force Jagmeet Singh to start talking about a basic income. She's going to force probably the Bloc Québécois to start talking about a basic income, right? Like, and because she is such an impressive person, I think she'll be effective at that. Will she be able to make the Green Party grow? That's the big question. Will she be able to successfully grow the Green Party? To be determined. And also, I just think ultimately, like, she's even more capitalist and imperialist than Elizabeth May, I think. That ultimately she ends up just being kind of like another reformist liberal, right? Like, she just wants to reform capitalism. Please let us continue invading and destroying people. Please let us continue getting resources from them. Please let us continue this gigantic colonial imperialist project. But we'll give you a basic income. So if you're interested, Grimes explained how AI can help achieve communism on TikTok. I saw an article, and I bet you will run into an article that wrote about that and kind of made fun of her for doing it, because she does, like, her perspective of communism is a misunderstanding. Like, she has a misunderstanding of how it works, or it sounds like she kind of explained it poorly. But I mean, I think that the very fact that they're talking about it in the first place is interesting. I don't know that much about the situation. I do know that Elon Musk is the son of an apartheid emerald miner who essentially buys his way into convincing everyone that he's smart when he's actually kind of a stupid person. So, like, I'm not pro Elon. Yeah, her senior staff is reprimanding MPs who speak out for Palestine. Exactly. There's a big struggle going on in the Green Party, and it's ongoing. Like, an outright socialist almost won leadership of that party, right? Like and if I forget his name, Dimitri something or other, and if he had have won, I think that he would have turned the Green Party into an outright socialist party, and it would have pushed it. And I actually think that is an inevitability for the Green Party, right? Like, they're already split pretty close 50-50 to being like socialist versus just sort of this eco-capitalism sort of perspective. But you know what? And calling her a centrist is, I think, fairly accurate. That you'll find she has like some left-wing views, but she also has some right-wing views, and so they kind of end up being like this mixing pot. I don't. Here, I bet you, Lonnie, you're asking, so let's find it. Grimes, communism TikTok video. I wonder if I can just find it like this. It always annoys me because everybody like reports on it, and then nobody is like, just show me the video, right? Like I just want to see. Just give me the video. I don't need your commentary on the video. I just want the video. Is this it? Is this it? Is this? Okay, here we go.
I have a proposition for the communists. So typically, most of the communists I know are not big fans of AI. But if you think about it, AI is actually the fastest path to communism. So, if implemented correctly, AI could actually theoretically solve for abundance. Like, we could totally get to a situation where nobody has to work, everybody is provided for with a comfortable state of being, comfortable living. AI could automate all the farming, weed out systematic corruption, thereby bringing us to as close as possible to genuine equality. So basically, everything that everybody loves about communism, but without the collective farm. Because, let's be real, enforced farming is really not a vibe.
Okay, thanks, buddy. I know, ghosts. Hold on, I gotta rescue my dog. I know, buddy, ghosts. You did it, buddy. Okay, give me 1 second, guys. Give me 1 second. Okay, buddy. You get some peanut butter. Peanut butter time for the pug. Peanut butter time for the dog. He's been such a good dog, he gets some peanut butter. He's a good boy like no other. Peanut butter time for the pug. Yeah. Peanut butter time for the pug. Peanut butter time for the pug. Yeah. It's peanut butter time for Milo pants. Peanut butter time for Milo pants. Peanut butter time. Okay. Well, I mean, straight up, like, let's be clear about who Grimes is, right? Like, she's the girlfriend of a billionaire, right? Like, her pitch is never going to include the idea that the automation and the robots and all that kind of stuff is actually owned by the society. right? That's never going to be the thing. She wants us to sort of just go, oh, that sounds great, and like lie down while she and her husband or boyfriend or whatever you call him just kind of take the society over, right? And that we end up just being their servants, more or less. And like, sure, we can like, but we're always beholden to them, right? Because they're the capitalists. They're the ones that are going to own all this means of production. They're the ones who are going to do what they want with it, right? And that they're just trying to tell us to get out of their way is really what it comes down to. They're not interested in like, if she was saying that and saying, and all of that will be controlled by like a democratic system that we're all involved in, then yeah, of course you can get on board with it. Like, that's what's so sinister about, and I don't know if she's doing that on purpose, right? Like, I would be surprised to find out that she's doing that on purpose. Like, let's assume that what she's saying is actually genuinely meant, right? Because it's more likely that she's, you know, just hasn't thought it all the way through. Then it's like this sinister plan where she is trying to think it all through. And like, of course, she believes that she will treat everybody right? Every ruler and queen and princess thinks that, right? Even while they commit mass genocide, they think that that's the case. So like, she's essentially saying, stop fighting us, get out of our way, let us automate everything, right? And we'll take control of the society, and because everything's automated, right? We'll do like a basic income, and then you guys can just slag off, right? Go do what you want with the, you know, the like survival weight or the survivalness that you've been given, while we build rockets to go to Mars and stuff, right? Like, it's, yeah, robots don't pay taxes or contribute to CPP. I mean, they should, right? Like, this is the thing, is like, if we actually like taxed these robots, if we actually, yeah, don't forget to hit thanks, Jeff. See, Jeff's doing my work for me. Hit the like button, hit the share button, subscribe, send it around, tell everybody you know that I exist in the world, please. We need more leftist voices. We need more leftist voices. The right wingers are insane, and we gotta fight back. We gotta push back. And like, on the one hand, I am kind of like, Grimes is like, it's interesting that she feels she needs to talk to the communists at all. Like, that's interesting. It's interesting that she needs to be bringing that up at all. It is. It's that by itself is interesting. But I would say that her critique of her own placement in her own society is incomplete. That if she was talking about how we need, and I mean, it's kind of natural because we are in this sort of like post neoliberal moment, right? And in this post neoliberal moment, like, the United States has no institutions, right? And the institutions they do have are completely subservient to neoliberalism. They don't exist to serve the people. They observe to serve people like Elon Musk, right? That they're not really regulators. They're just sort of the path through the legal structure that's in place to subserviate themselves to the billionaire class, right? And our government structures are completely subservient to the billionaire class, right? Like, I just made a video today about my second video that I've made about the Canadian Infrastructure Bank, right? Like, that's a complete and total concession to corporate power, and the merger of two forces that need to not be merged, right? Like, I don't want my churches to be merged with government, and I don't want my businesses and corporate power to be merged with my government. And in the United States, those two have been merged for so long, and government is so subservient to corporate power that, like, somebody like Grimes, like, she's never going to, like, she wants Tesla to create robot farms and factories and automate all of this kind of stuff, and then she just kind of wants to, you know, toss a token at the populace and tell them to slag off while she and her hubby go fire rockets at Mars. That's it. That's as far as that goes. Like, and of course, like, what happens to every billionaire, right? Like, what happens to every wealthy person is that they just become so detached from reality that, like, she genuinely is probably posting this being like, oh, there's so much strife in the world, and wouldn't this help? Like, I'm trying to help. And so passing a basic income and then automating everything so that everybody can just sort of sit in fields all day. I mean, I don't know. Maybe she's right. But probably not, right? And it's probably, given the sociopathic nature of the billionaire class, it's likely just a front, right? Just get out of the way, let the billionaires take over, and that's it. America, capitalism is the best system. America in 1893, 29, 80, 87, 08, 2020. I have crippling depression. Yeah. Yeah. Like, I actually heard an argument the other day. That straight out argued that feudalism was a better system than capitalism. That like, and the argument was really, it came down to, well, under feudalism, like, the serfs were always taken care of regardless to how much work had to be done, right? That the serfs lived under the king, and if there was like a lot of work to do, they, had a lot of work to do, got food and shelter. But if there wasn't much to do, they got food and shelter, and there's even recorded cases in feudal societies where they had a ruler, like a king would come through, or a prince or a lord or a baron or whoever, right? And their general opinion would be, well, everybody should chill out. Why don't we just chill out? Like, yeah, sure, we need to like work on the field and like all that kind of stuff. And like, I have to administer, and there are knights and we all have to administer. But like, we don't need to like rush around at this. Like, chill out, right? And so everybody just kind of like chilled out. And there were like these huge festivals, right? And by all accounts, right, the festivals are being done by people who are like, yeah, festival time, let's go, and like they're super jacked about it. And there's even periods of time. April Fool's Day is a great example. So what would happen is members of the society for a period of time would become the king, right? That the king would become like a serf, or not the king, but like the lord of the land. He would become like a serf and go do serf jobs, right? And somebody else from the society would become the lord for a little while, and they'd like switch spots, right? And like there are all these stories of how like a lord would just be like when we think about feudalism, when we think about the feudal system, we do think about like the worst guys, the guys that abused their power horribly, the Doug Fords of the world, right? But there are plenty of times in feudalism where the dude that was in charge is just like, you know what, I don't want to fight. I'm not interested in a fight. Do you want that little slip? Like, we're gonna have a fight over like this valley down here, and you're gonna kill some of my people for it. Don't worry about it. Just take the valley. And the serfs are just like, yeah, who cares about that valley? Go fucking take it. And yeah, like, hey Robin, how you doing? Good to see you. And serfs had actual communities. Yeah, we don't. Not really. Like, unless you consider like the people you work with at Walmart a community, which that's what they try to tell you. That's what they try to convince you. But like, and like, don't get me wrong. Like, there's definitely periods of time throughout feudalism, and like, not being able to interact with the decision-making apparatus is really what it comes down to, right? Like, there's no democracy. And if you get one of these shitbags in a feudal society, you're stuck with them, right? Like, imagine living in this society right now and Doug Ford is just the king, right? He just is. That's who he is. That's his role. And he'll be that way until the day he dies. And then when he dies, the next king will be his son, who's exactly the same, right? That's feudalism. So while I'm sitting here being like, oh yeah, there are these occasions where people are like, oh yeah, everything's chill and all that kind of stuff, there's definitely occasions, like hundreds of years of occasions in places where it's like a total tyrant, just a total tyrant dickbag, and nobody can do anything about it. because that's the system. God decreed it. He's the divine right of kings, right? But the very fact that this person is able to make this argument, and there's also the stability argument, right? Like, feudalism didn't have economic collapses the way that capitalism has collapses. Like, these collapses are happening, like, constantly. These are regular collapses, right? Just it doesn't happen in feudal systems, right? There's a consistency there. And so what I'm saying is that maybe capitalism collapsing back into neo-feudalism isn't such a bad thing. Okay, enough of that. Yeah, Amazon is bombarding New York workers with anti-union. Of course they are. Like, it's kind of odd that this is even a headline, honestly. Like, yeah. Of course they are. I'm always disappointed, though, because they never really do a good job of showing us what the propaganda actually is. No, before you sign. Like, here's a good example. Like, I'd like to... But, like, we are here for you. Yeah, look at this screen. We're not trying to hypnotize you. Don't be fooled by the vest. Union representatives are approaching associates wearing Amazon vests to mislead them into thinking they represent or speak for Amazon. Don't be fooled by this. Yeah, like... Yeah. Another sign why, like, it's dangerous to have even a single billionaire. Like, look how much money they're spending on this, right? Like, this costs money. So they've got a screen going 100% of the time that costs power, right? This is a designer, a printer, right? Like, they needed all this. Somebody got paid to do all this kind of stuff, right? You can pay like 100 lawyers, 100 people to be like anti-union reps. Mr. Leahy would be an acceptable lord. Yeah. Hey Ward, how you doing? Thanks for tuning in. Yeah. Black Lives Matter is not an anti-white movement. Feminism is not an anti-men movement. Pride is not an anti-straight movement. This isn't about you. Yeah. That's true. It's true. Crybaby Tucker Carlson compares vaccinations to Jim Crow era. Come on, man.
All right, so Tucker Carlson, one of the most effective
I like this
white
guy. Good politics
fake
guy.
populist propagandists in the entire United States, went on a rant last night, and it was delusional for a number of reasons, but I'm just start out here with the first 5 seconds where he does something that I wouldn't even call a Freudian slip, but really just a direct outreach to his white supremacist viewers. So let's go ahead and start with the first 5 seconds here.
Pretty much everybody agreed that segregation was the worst thing this country ever did.
Oh yeah, that became like a big meme where he's like, everyone agrees that segregation was the worst thing. Like, he's literally going to say best. You can see it. He's going, what is this except to go, right? He's literally going to say best, and he like figures it out and he gets to worst. All right. Like, I'm glad that there are people on the left who are going after figures like Ben Shapiro and Tucker Carlson and all of this kind of stuff. But, like, it's such, like, low-hanging fruit. Like, these guys are such obvious white supremacists. They're such terrifying figures. Ugh. And, like, Tucker Carlson is, like, he's already a wealthy millionaire, right? He just wants to be on TV. This is the thing about Tucker Carlson, right? About Tucky Baby, right? Is that he doesn't actually care what he says. Like, he's just reading from a cue card, right? Like, all he wants to be is on TV. That's it. He doesn't need to be on TV. He doesn't need the money, right? He's got millions and millions of dollars. Like, he's a trust fund baby, right? Like, he doesn't need any of this. He just wants to be on TV. And, like, if to me, that's like a very dangerous kind of person, because if you're not doing it out of some kind of sense of moral need or moral desire or a desire to be genuine in the public sector or in the public arena of ideas, right? You're just there because you want to be seen. You want to be famous. You want to be a person who has who is seen as an important person in the society, right? Then you're just going to read whatever's put in front of you by whoever is willing to put you in front. Like, he's just a little tool by the billionaire class, right? And the billionaire class understands that fomenting fascist, racist rage is useful. It's a good way to protect capital. Have you heard of the self-spreading vaccine that's under development? I have not, dude. That sounds scary. That sounds scary, dude. Any of this kind of stuff where we're like trying to hijack human genomes and human genes and things like this in this sort of large-scale systemic way, right? Like, I'm very skeptical of that, because, like, who's to say the vaccine itself is not going to more, like, we pretend as though we have control over so much, and we don't. We really don't. So, like, if that starts to happen, who's to say that the vaccine itself doesn't morph into something weird, right? Like, we don't know what it's going to do. September 30th will be a new statutory holiday for truth and reconciliation. Bill C-5 passed the Senate unanimously. That's nice. Like, that's nice. But that's like classic liberalism, right? Like, that's classic liberalism, right? Will you guys go away if we give you a holiday? Will you guys go away if we, do kind of tokenism towards this? Will you guys go away if we try to placate you, throw a crumb in that direction? Will that make you go away, right? There needs to be a full-scale investigation. Like, there needs to be a full-scale investigation on this. And the liberals keep throwing little crumbs at it. Yeah, exactly. Pass a holiday but not fix water, right? And there needs to be, like, a full-scale investigation. And, of course, this speaks into why it's a super bad idea to vote for the son of a former ruler, right? There needs to be a full-scale investigation, but Justin Trudeau would fundamentally be launching an investigation that could very well indict his own father, right? The residential school system ended in 1996. Pierre Elliott Trudeau was in power. Pierre Elliott Trudeau. Let's get specific. I've been saying this a couple of times, but, like, let's get specific. So he's in office. No. He's in office way before that. This is his second time in. So 1968, right? 1979. So 1968. So he's in power 1968. So that's like almost 20 years, or like 15 years he's in power while the residential school system is still functioning, right? And, like, Trudeau, like, Justin knows this. So if he launches a full-scale investigation on the residential school system in an attempt to completely uncover what happened and uncover, like, more mass graves, more stuff, he'll also definitely uncover documents that indict his own father, right? Like, or at least I'd be very afraid of that. Like, I would be afraid of what I would find about my own father if I did this large-scale investigation. So they're not going to. They're just going to do what liberals do, which is sort of throw these little tiny reformist crumbs in the direction of the issue, like pass a holiday, and hope that makes everybody shut up about it. But, like, churches' refusal to release records hinders identification of buried children, right? Like, more and more of those sorts of stories are going to come up. And I'm beginning to really learn. One of my Patreons really got me on. There's a subreddit that you're going to see on here called Gen Z Dong, and it's essentially about international news, but it's really from a Gen Z perspective. And I'm reading more articles about Gen Z and more of this kind of stuff. And Gen Z is ready to throw the table over, man. Like, they're done. Like, they're not interested in this system. The system is obviously rigged against them, like, specifically them. Like, if I'm Gen Z and I'm seeing what's happening to the millennials, and, like, the millennials are turning around to Gen Z and being like, yep, it's going to be worse for you, right? I'm not going to participate in any of this. And so stories like this, where it's like churches' refusal to release records hinders identification of buried children, they're going to keep that up, and they're going to show interest, and they're going to pay attention. And so I just don't think this is going to go away. We live in a boring dystopia. Me in 2015. The Nordics and Scandinavians are perfect and amazing. I'm a democratic socialist, just like Justin Trudeau and Bernie. Me now. Yeah, Sweden and Canada are pretty bad. Social democracy is a scam. Maybe anarchism is a good idea. Yeah, there's a bit of that. No, a little bit more than a bit. Like, and you wait, man. Like, a meme like this 5 years from now, like, this guy is going to be like, how come we haven't overthrown this thing already? Like, it's so obviously corrupt. And it's going to get more and more obvious as things like the Canada Infrastructure Bank make wealth inequality worse, as the society continues to fray, as people are continuously abandoned, right? Like, there's no, like, the name of this live stream today is Rebel, Revolt, and Strike. There's just no reason to participate in this system anymore, right? They are actively attempting to destroy us completely, and we need to abandon them back, right? Like, it's really that simple. Like, I'm to the point now where I'm saying, like, why are we negotiating with these capitalists? Like, we should take everything they have, and I don't mean pay for everything, I mean take everything they have, tell them to slag off, and organize a democratic society that actually works. But the propagandists will probably be fairly effective dismantling that kind of thinking, because that's what capitalism's actually good at. Canadian flights are now dirt cheap, with prices as low as $114 to fly between Toronto and Vancouver. Yeah, because these guys know that if they don't actually, like, start to at least pretend like the attitudes and opinions of the people they exploit matter, that we'll start to talk about nationalization. And we should. It's stupid. Why? You're telling me that we have, like, jets flying through our airspace, and it's private sociopathic capitalists that own it? Fuck that. These places should be nationalized. Like, they should be owned by the state. They should be owned and operated by the state. It's like a major national security issue to let sociopaths own these things, right? Like, how is this not, like, an enormous issue? Hey, B-Man, how you doing, bud? Good to see you. I'd argue the same with transitions from Soc Dem to Dem Soc to outright communism, whether it's ML Trotskyist Maoist, yeah. And like, the more I investigate the, like, distinctions in communism that exist, the more I see that, like, these distinctions are really fine. Like, these are really fine distinctions, right? Like, and they're really fine and on, like, really technical kind of aspects. And it really bugs me that the left has allowed themselves to separate from one another along these sorts of technical lines. And of course the capitalists love it. The capitalists they're a huge, they absolutely want to drive wedges between us. Like, it's propaganda. What's bothering me today did a great video on Air Canada. Yeah, that guy's great. That guy's great. And I wish that guy would start talking about the Canada Infrastructure Bank. I wish the serfs would start talking about the Canada Infrastructure Bank. I wish the Vanguard would start talking about the Canada Infrastructure Bank. Like, these guys need to start talking about the Canada Infrastructure Bank, right? But I get why they don't. It's dry material, right? I don't know that it would, like, attract a whole bunch of views. And we are talking into, like, kind of like, the populace is unaware of the Canada Infrastructure Bank. So if you make a video called "What's going on with the Canada Infrastructure Bank?" people probably won't click on it. That's why I have to name videos like the capitalist death cult is going to destroy us with the Canada Infrastructure Bank, because it's true. But, like, I just wish that the left was shouting about the Canada Infrastructure Bank. Like, we need to know so much more about it. We need to have daily updates about it, because it's an institution that needs to be dismantled instantly. Like, it needs to go away instantly. It's a fascist organization that exists in our society, that was propped up, that was created by Merrill Lynch and BlackRock. Like, they're trying to privatize our water. That's what it really comes down to. That's what they're trying to do with that organization. So we need to get rid of it. And the fact that I'm the only person talking about it is scary. It's scary that, like, a guy who has, like, 520 subscribers is the only person on the entire internet outside of like a Jacobin article over here, and like the Star did one a year ago, and the Globe and Mail did one 2 years ago, and that's it. That's it. That's what the national conversation is. Literally, like the major institutions did one article one time, the Jacobin did one article one time, and now it's just some fucking guy off on the fringes of the internet with 520 subscribers trying to convince even a guy who has like only 1,000 subscribers to talk about it. What's better, state control or worker cooperative control? I think you'll need a blending. No matter what, you'll need some kind of blending. And when we say state control, I insist that state control be democratic, right? That there's a democratic structure that exists. And in truth, like, I feel like it should be democratic all the way down, and we need to expand our democratic structure. Like, here in Toronto, a city councillor has jurisdiction over like 100,000 people. It's way too many. That's way too many for a single council member, right? Like, we need like less, like 10,000 people. Like, it should be way, way less. And like, the democracy should be more direct. People should be able to directly influence their own communities and cultures without getting permission from like John Tory or Doug Ford, right? Have you heard the TrueAnon podcast about the infiltration of UK socialist groups? So, no. I love that name, though, TrueAnon. That's a super good one. I do know about this, though. Like, yeah, I mean, this is what capitalists do. Of course they're going to do this. I have conversations, not regularly, but I have had conversations with Socialist Action members who are constantly we're constantly worried that if we attain any amount of power, that we'll be infiltrated. Infiltration is part of the game, right? They want to do it, they will do it, and it's something to keep an eye out all the time. It probably depends a lot on the government. Like, in theory, state control is probably better, but as an American, I would trust co-ops more in the interim. Well, I mean, especially in America, there really is no government in America, right? Like, the government exists, insofar as the government exists, it just exists to kind of keep corporate power in power, right? Like, that's what American government is for. Like, it's not. So if you tried to say, let's do state control in America, well, they would just be like, oh, okay, so it's state run, so let's privatize it, because that's what they do. That's how it is. And that's the reason why the Americans failed so badly in regards to the coronavirus, because they have no institutions, right? Dealing with COVID required institutional measures. It required institutional controls, and they don't. Not only do they not have the institutions, they don't even have people who believe in institutions in order to erect those institutions in the first place. So you're talking about like need, and then on top of that, the people who are educating the people who would do such a thing themselves do not believe in institutions, right? So you're talking about needing like to, from the bare bones basement of like learning. You need to learn and accept that institutions need to exist, and that they need to be erected, and they need to have a job, and they need to be in place to deal with these crises in the first place. I would say that America's a good like 50, 60 years back on that. Like, if they all suddenly like woke up and accepted that like, oh, there need to be like state-run institutions that actually take control over some things and are in control of these without privatizing them or being influenced by corporate power. Yeah, take about 50, 60 years for them to get to that point. From that moment to the actual finishing of doing that. Doug Ford shrunk Toronto City Council. Yeah, like and he did it with this idea, and it's the same thing that Mike Harris did, right? And they lie and they say it'll be cheaper, right? And it never is. It's like twice as expensive to do, because if you suddenly double the amount of people that a person has jurisdiction over, well, they need to hire double the amount of staff, and so it's always more expensive. But what it's about is about control and dissipating like one individual counselor can only deal with so much, right? Even if they have a large staff, they can only deal with so much. And so what do they end up dealing with? Well, they don't end up dealing with like an individual with a business that, or like an individual with like an issue on the street or anything like that. They end up dealing with large institutions, which that's exactly what Doug Ford wants, right? Doug Ford doesn't care about the person like living on the street, obviously. He cares about large institutions. And when I say large institutions, I mean Walmart. I don't mean government institutions. I mean very much like corporate institutions. Because that's the only thing that Doug Ford cares about in regards to negotiating. Like, the only thing Doug Ford truly cares about is himself. He cares about money for himself, and he sees dealing with large-scale institutions like Amazon or Walmart as a way to enrich himself. And so I threw it into Discord. If you want to check it out later, it's quite long. TrueAnon Spy. Yeah, I'll check that out later. I love podcasts and things like this. I'll give this a listen. I throw on a podcast, and if anybody wants to get into the Discord and throw up any links or anything like this in here, there's a great community in the Discord. All you got to do is donate to my Patreon. It's $1 or more. I suggest more. Clearly. Well, I'll definitely check that out, Robin. I usually stay up for a couple hours after these streams, so I'll throw that on. Requiring proof of age to look at internet porn raises privacy issues. Senate committee hears. I'm not gonna. This is such a sticky issue, right? Because if you start talking about age and age of consent, there are people who literally, like, if you start saying anything about, like, even like a 17-year-old looking at porn, like, suddenly they're like, oh, you're a pedophile, and oh, yeah, all this kind of stuff. So, especially as like a straight white male, like, you can't have a genuine and honest conversation about age of consent or any of that kind of stuff in the public sphere, because our society is so prudish and so just like tied up in this idea that, like, oh, we can't show our kids sex even though they're a total byproduct of sex, and that sex is something that everybody not only wants to engage in but has like an existential need to pursue, right? Even though it's completely built into our DNA, completely necessary for the survival of our species, completely a goal that is intrinsically tied into who we are as people. If a 14-year-old sees some boobies, oh man, their lives are over and they're going to turn into deviant perverts. I just feel like the whole conversation is very childish. And we have a very childish outlook. Not only in regards to pornography, but into regards to sexuality generally. We have just like a very childish outlook. And it really does come down to, like, I just wish we would chill out. I just wish we would chill out a little bit more. Try to enjoy ourselves a little bit more. Try to stop pretending like if you know, a 16-year-old sees two people having sex, it's going to ruin their lives. You know, like, it's getting a little bit embarrassing. Well, and age of consent things and like this, Ward, like, they're always up for debate, and they're always like, and there's always conversation, and there's always this kind of stuff. I just wish we weren't such, you know, and I guess I could say this about most things. I just wish we weren't total assholes about it. But that's white culture for you. So let's recap. Sex ed is discouraged. Birth control is impossible to access. Abortion and miscarriage are considered felonies. Felons can't vote. Hadn't considered the felons can't vote part. They're running the long con, it seems. Yeah, I mean, anything they can do, right? Anything they can do to try to dismantle the democratic structure, which in America I think is an inevitability. It's an inevitability. There will come a point in America where they'll just do away with this democratic structure because it's no longer convenient for the oligarchs, right? That as long as it's convenient for the oligarchs to maintain this sort of facade of democracy, even though, let's be straight, like since like the 60s or 70s, like the Carter administration, nothing important really has happened outside of major gifts and a huge coup de grace by the corporate sector. So if the public suddenly started to use the democratic institutions to undo that coup de grace, they just get rid of it and just rule nakedly, right? And so there is going to be a point where figures like Bill Gates and Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, like, they're just going to rule nakedly and openly without any of this like democratic kind of thing. And their statement really will be very straightforward. They'll just be like, "What are you going to do about it?" So, like, yeah, sure, organize, get together, like, fine, come with 100,000 people, come with 1 million people, right? We own the military. Go the fuck away. And that's really what it'll be like. Voting booths will be replaced with online polls, conducted by Facebook so that people will still think they're voting. That's the funny part too, is that they'll still poll, right? And they'll even release the polls, right? Like people don't really get or realize how easy it would be for the military-industrial complex to just, well, I shouldn't even say how easy it would be for the military-industrial complex to take the place over. Like, the military-industrial complex has taken over, right? Like America is obviously a military state. Like, it's pretty straightforward. And this idea that we'll have a vote and suddenly we'll vote to no longer be a military state. Well, then the military state will just be like, "Oh, then forget your vote." Like, well, no. Not interested in that. So it's, and it's coming. Like, it's coming. Like, the naked rule is coming. And ultimately, like, Donald Trump was an interesting figure in this regard because, like, the complaint by the ruling class was never that Donald Trump was doing stuff they didn't like, right? It was always that he was just kind of a grotesque bore, right? That was the problem that they had with Donald Trump. They didn't mind his tax cut. They didn't mind, his militarism. They didn't mind any of that. They didn't mind his social policies or anything, right? Like, they didn't complain about any of this. They complained about the fact that he was just kind of a dick, right? And now that Biden's in, everybody's like, "Oh, finally, like a face that looks like kind of like an uncle." And, "Oh, you want to talk about policy? No, we're not going to do that. That's not interesting. No." And so it's very difficult for me to perceive that America doesn't just collapse into a civil war. And like some people are already saying in America that they're already in this civil war. It's just the guns aren't being shot. What are your thoughts on the Communist Party of Canada, the Marxist-Leninist Party of Canada, and any socialist electoral party which also participate in elections but also actions outside? I have never seen any of those organizations show up to anything that is important. I actually genuinely believe that, especially the Communist Party of Canada, I think they've been completely co-opted by capitalists. I think they exist in name alone. And they specifically exist to funnel political energy and political will away from centers of power. I think that that's why they exist. And if that is not the case, then I don't know where they are. I don't know who they are. I don't know anything about them. I don't know what they're doing. They are more than welcome to contact me, and I will gladly interview them. But I don't see them at protests. I don't see them at events. I don't see them. The only ones that I've really seen that are actually actively attempting to participate are like Marxist.ca. Marxist.ca I see around. And then the organization that I'm a part of, which is Socialist Action. And I think that it is important that we join third-party, non-affiliated organizations and vote within the official parties as voting blocks, right? Like, I think it's important that we get together outside of like the NDP or the Liberal Party or the Green Party and get together in voting blocks in order to go into those parties and force them to the left and force them to adopt policies that they would not otherwise adopt. But the Communist Party of Canada, the Marxist-Leninist Party of Canada, I don't know who they are. I don't know what they stand for. I think they're co-opted by capitalists. I think that the capitalists have stolen the names specifically so that we can't have them. That's really what it comes down to. And it's a brilliant strategy. It's a smart strategy, right? And if they're smart, they'll put forward people who are complete lunatics, right? They'll put forward people who are just complete lunatics so that they can continue the project of discrediting the communist movement here in Canada. Like, that's what I would be doing if I was a billionaire. I would be buying the party, the Communist Party of Canada, and I would be finding the most lunatic, fringe, insane person I can find and constantly putting them in front of people and pretending like this is what communism is. Yeah, they didn't like that Trump was an unpleasant coworker for them. That's a good way of putting it, Robin. That's a really good way of putting it. Yeah, Trump was just an unpleasant coworker. Like, he did everything we wanted, but dealing with him on the day-to-day was a real pain in the ass. Biden is so much easier, right? He does everything we want, and then he just goes and has a nap, right? The rural-urban divide is a tremendous factor in political ideology. Yeah, and that's not new, right? Like, you can go back to, like, Mark Twain and see that like, the people who are working in the fields and the people who are out of the cities feel as though they're getting a raw deal, and the city folk think that the rural people are kind of ignorant hicks, you know? And the reality is, if you actually got the two people in the room, you'd find out that they actually have a lot in common and they'd actually agree on a lot, right? Like, but you got to keep any divide the capitalist can find, right? Any divide the capitalist can find. Latest update on the RCMP's lies and deceptions concerning the worst mass shooting in modern Canadian history. These calls confirm that 911 was told 911 was told by at least 3 victims that Gabriel Wortman was driving a police cruiser. This totally blows out of the water the RCMP's assertion that they did not know Wortman was driving a police car. I don't know enough about this story to really comment on it, but yeah, I mean, like, the more I learn about the RCMP, the more I'm just like, this institution exists to protect capital exclusively. Like, it's not interested in anything else. Like, it's just a band of sort of thugs that were erected to go after First Nations people. They're not interested in justice. Like, they're not going to inform anybody of anything. I don't really understand why they would lie about this. Although, I guess it looks bad that there's a citizen who manages to get a hold of a police cruiser. Like, how do you get a hold of the police cruiser? Is the RCMP actually involved in this? Did this happen because the RCMP wanted it to happen? Maybe that's why they're lying. Yeah, something to pay attention to. Hey, DM, how you doing, bud? Hi, John. You made an excellent point about the Canadian infrastructure banks being a corrupt scheme infiltrated by the billionaire sociopaths, only designed to make the extreme rich richer. Very sad. And, dude, what scares me about that story is no one's talking about it. Like, no one is talking about it. Like, I already said on this channel, but I'll say it again, and I'm going to keep saying it. It's weird that, like, the Globe and Mail has done one article that I have found, right? And it was a good article, don't get me wrong. Even the Globe and Mail is like, this is a fucking problem. What did they call it? They called it a, there's a word that they used, but it was like a snafu, right? They said that, like, history will bear out that the Liberal government made a foible, made an oopsie, right? That's kind of the level of the language that they're using. But you know that if the Globe and Mail is saying that, like, on that level, that it's serious. So the Globe and Mail did one article. I found one piece, an opinion piece in the Toronto Star, and I found a Jacobin article. And the Jacobin article does a really good job. And but so 3 articles on this, and then it's me. It's literally me. So 3 articles and then me, like a fringe, like communist on YouTube that has 520 subscribers. And I'm just desperately trying to get any other leftist to talk about this. Like, I'm just desperate to get, like, even the Bothered guy, like the What's Bothering Me Today, and he only has, like, 1,500. The Serfs, Vanguard, all of these guys, the moderate rebels, none of them are talking about it. Nobody's talking about it. I don't hear Michael Hudson talk about it. I don't hear Richard Wolff talk about it. I'm hearing literally nobody talk about the Canada Infrastructure Bank. And that's what's scary to me, right? It would be one thing if Justin Trudeau was like erecting this institution and the left was like, what's this then? What's all this then? Then we could then I'd be like, okay, great. But it's a totally silent, completely dead issue. And it's a literal fascist institution that's going to attempt to privatize our water. Like, we should have daily comments and updates about this. We should constantly be talking about this. Like, it should at least weekly be something we're constantly looking at. But instead, it's just like, I mean, honestly, Ward, you could just go watch the video I just did, right? But like, I don't. Okay, fine. For you, Ward, absolutely. So, hold on. My puppy needs peanut butter. Peanut butter time for the pug. Can't sing this song because of copyright issues. Okay. Very, very quickly, right? The Canada Infrastructure Bank. It allows billionaires to give loans to the government. So instead of the government taxing the billionaires in order to build bridges, water pipes, water purification centers, any of this kind of stuff, it takes a loan out from the billionaires. And of course, if you're a billionaire and you're giving out a loan, you want that money paid back, right? Pay the loan back. And then, of course, they also need interest because they're not just going to loan the money like at a flat, like give it and then give it back. They want a return of like 7 to 10%, right? Where does that money come from, right? It's not coming from the billionaires. It's not coming from the big pile of money that exists over here. Who's it coming from? It's coming from the Canadian workers, and it's coming from the people who are actually living in the society who don't have that much money in the first place. And so every time a project gets done, money siphons away up more and more up to the top. And so it's a structure that like is designed to collapse the society and to collapse the economy. It's structurally designed to collapse the economy. And for goodness sakes, you've got like people like Bill Morneau and Justin Trudeau outright admitting that, yeah, it's more expensive to do it this way. It costs Canadians more to have this kind of bank than it would be to just tax the wealthy and do it that way. But they're doing it because they want to go to brunch with these guys. And when they're out of office, they want a cushy job, right? They're not interested in working for the Canadian people. Like, they're totally fine if the society collapses. And like, let's be really clear about this, about what the Canada Infrastructure Bank actually is, right? Because when they borrow this money when the government borrows money and all this kind of stuff, they're doing it through something called a public-private partnership, or P3, right? Public-private partnership. Mussolini, right? Bertold Mussolini defined fascism. The quote is, fascism would better be called corporatism because it is the merger of the public sector and the private sector. Public-private partnership. It's a merger. The Canada Infrastructure Bank is a fascist organization that is going to collapse our economy, privatize our water supplies, privatize our healthcare system. That's what it's for. And the fact that the left is not screaming their heads off about this really is just like, I don't even know what to think about that. I don't even know what to think about that. It should be issue number one. Like, it should be issue number one, and every single issue that comes up in Canada should be tied to the Canada Infrastructure Bank. We should constantly be attempting and trying and thinking, okay, so this is happening. How does this connect to the Canada Infrastructure Bank? Because that's how important the Canada Infrastructure Bank is now, right? That it is entrenched. Think about somebody like David Thompson. David Thompson's the wealthiest man in Canada. He's a baron. His father was a baron. His father was a baron. Literally, a baron came from Europe, came to Canada with their billions of dollars, landed in, stayed as a baron, kept handing their wealth down as a baron, right? And now here's David Thompson with the official title, the third Baron of Fleet. You can Google him. It doesn't take any time at all. David Thompson, third Baron of Fleet. There he is. Like, you can read all about him. Here he is, right? We know his history. We know all the kind of stuff. He's literally, and his title is officially recognized by Canada. The Lord Thompson of Fleet. David Thompson, third Baron Thompson of Fleet. That's his official title, right? And so people who are like, we need to abolish the monarchy, get rid of the Queen. The wealthiest guy in Canada is a baron, right? And still is a baron. Like, we never got rid of the monarchy here, dude. Like, we never got rid of it. And here he is. He owns like 20% of everything. And so some guy like this, his wealth is now entrenched into the governmental proceedings of how things go in Canada. If we want to build a bridge, we got to go to David Thompson and ask permission. If we want to build a bridge, we got to go to the Westons and ask permission. And if we don't get their permission, then it doesn't get built. This is a major problem that we are ignoring. Like, and the left is not talking about it. The serfs aren't talking about it. The Vanguard isn't talking about it. The bothered boy isn't talking about it. Right? The moderate rebels aren't talking about it. Michael Hudson's not talking about it. I've never seen a Canadian economist talk about it. Right? And I've only ever found 3 articles. This is a major problem. And every issue that we talk about should be directly connected to the Canadian Infrastructure Bank. And there's dead silence. It's dead silence. Like, are we going to wait until after the economy collapses to be like, what happened? What's this bank? Fuck that. Get rid of this bank. This bank should not exist. We have a bank. It's called the Bank of Canada. Tax these fuckers. Tax them. There's no reason for us to do any, like, why are we negotiating with these guys? Why are we negotiating with capitalists? Why do we have to ask them permission for anything? Like, it's disgusting. It's disgusting and disgraceful. Survey shows people no longer believe working hard will lead to a better life because it doesn't, right? Be born rich. That's how you get a better life. How do I de-radicalize my neo-Nazi brother? Yeah, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. Let's just, after that rant, let's just spend a minute. I used to go to Banff all the time when I was a kid. My family would take a vacation. We would drive across country. We lived in Manitoba. And we would drive across Alberta and Saskatchewan, which is actually a really peaceful drive because it's so flat. People don't understand this about Manitoba and Saskatchewan, that, like, if you ever find yourself in Manitoba and Saskatchewan, do yourself a favor, get off the Trans-Canada a little bit, go a little north. You don't need to go very far. Find, like, the fields and all this kind of stuff, and, like, get out and just appreciate how, like, when we say flat, like, it's so flat that you can see the curvature of the earth. Like, anybody who tries, like, flat earthers, like, I'm like, no, there's no such thing as a flat earther that lives in the prairies. Because you can literally, like, take a flat earther out and be like, well, what's that? And you can see the curvature of the earth. And it's striking. I feel like people who have lived their whole lives in cities or in, like, mountainous terrain, like, they get that there's the sky, but seeing, like, the sky, right, down to, like, the vanishing point of where, like, the land and the sky meet and you can't perceive a separation any longer. And like living on the prairies was so interesting because through my youth, like you'd step out your front door, you'd take a look, and you'd be like, oh, it's gonna rain in a couple of hours. Like you feel the wind coming, you could see it. It's over there. It's coming. Right? And then you turn your radio on and they'd be like, rain in a couple of hours, and you'd be like, oh yeah, okay. And so you need to do what you need to do to make sure that you don't get rained on in a couple hours. Here in Toronto, you could just be like literally like sunny days. Do 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 da da. And so we would drive across the prairies and get to Banff. And my favorite part about driving across the prairies, especially to a place like Banff, is that like you could see the mountain, right? You'd see the mountain in the distance, and you'd be like, "Oh, good, we're almost there." And then like literally like 12 hours later, you'd finally get there. You're just like, "Oh, I see the mountain, but it's still." Like, that's the other thing. You kind of forget how big mountains actually are. You're like, "Oh, these things are big." Oh, yeah, you lived in Winnipeg for a bit, eh? Where? And Ward, you're like, there's got to be some kind of positive spin they put on the idea. No. And they know. They know that they can't spin it. This is the thing about this one, Ward. They know that they cannot spin this. So their strategy is silence. The strategy is silence. And it's anytime anybody comes out with... So, for example, I noticed this. Jacobin came out with the article about the infrastructure bank, and that's exactly the same time that everybody, that every news organization started to kick up a conversation about Bill C-10, right? So we got like 100 articles about Bill C-10 and how everybody's like, they're taking our rights away and all this kind of stuff. Dead radio silence on the Canada Infrastructure Bank. And it's so that the populace can be gulled into believing that the corporate media structure is actually attempting and will actually attempt to protect us from government overreach, right? But Bill C-10 has ended up being the most tepid, limp-wristed, like it's nothing. It's literally nothing. And it's not going to take your rights away. The government isn't going to start shutting down channels and all this sort of bullshit. And it was obvious to anyone who actually read the legislation for 2 seconds, right? And and so their strategy, like, let's pretend that the Globe and Mail does another article on the Canada Infrastructure Bank, right? So they'll come out with the Canada Infrastructure Bank article. It'll come out on page 53 of like the Sunday edition or whatever, and then suddenly there'll be like huge articles in the National Post and the Toronto Star and Global TV and all this kind of stuff about another WE scandal. And everything will be about the WE scandal. And we'll be all up in arms because, corruption in the, and meanwhile, this literal fascist institution will just, I'm here to privatize your water supply. Don't do anything about that. Every time you take a sip of water, give me $1. That's totally normal. Welcome to Canada. Like, we're fucked. And nobody's talking about it. Nobody's talking about it. And that's what's maddening, man. I'd feel so much better if anybody else was even having the briefest conversation about it. But nope, that's not going to happen. Canada MPs unanimously condemn Air Canada for millions in executive bonuses. Nationalize these places. You want to actually do something about CEOs giving themselves millions of dollars in executive bonuses after receiving huge bailouts from us? Nationalize them. Like, I'm a communist, right? I'm done with these capitalists. They need to go. Jen Zedong. Throwback Thursday to when those imperialist mercs got their asses kicked so badly by militant Venezuelan fishermen that they pissed themselves. Yeah. This is a picture that was taken, and I believe it was... I don't remember if these are the mercenaries or the actual Marines. But, like, the Americans send people into Venezuela all the time to attempt to assassinate people. They'd love to assassinate Nicolas Maduro. They would love to assassinate Nicolas Maduro. That would cause a lot of instability if they assassinated Maduro right now. Because for all of the critiques that you can lay at Maduro's feet, and there are actual legitimate critiques that you can lay at his feet, he is a competent military commander, and he knows how to deploy troops, and he knows how to recruit people. The Venezuelan military has swelled. It's like swelled over the last 4 or 5 years because they know. They're completely aware that like this shit is happening. They know who their enemy is. They're not pretending. A day after Doug Ford hinted at an early reopening, Ontario's top doctor says it's too soon to say. So that means that they are going to reopen because Doug Ford doesn't listen to his top doctors. Yeah, Singh demands Trudeau drop legal battle against First Nations children survivors. Like, what are you hoping to gain there, Trudeau? Like, what's the win? What's the spike? Like, yeah, we did it. Spike. Take that, children. It just seems like a major loss, no matter how you look at it. And good for Singh for speaking out. Bicycled across the prairies, best place. Yeah. Good place to drive through, I'd say. There's a reason I don't live there anymore. That's really mean of me. I'm so sorry. I don't mean to say that if you're from the prairies. I'm from the prairies, so I get to do it. Love you, prairie people. Please don't unsubscribe. I was in the height of my addiction when I was homeless and spent a lot of time at one of the gay bars and would find a guy I could crash with and shower. Oh, Jeff. Thanks for sharing that. That's the oh, man. Oh, dear. Yeah, I don't know that Winnipeg would be the best place to be homeless. I mean, the winter alone, I don't even know what you would do about it. Ooh. What a tough situation. I'm glad to hear that you got out of that situation, Jeff. I'm glad to hear that you got out of that situation. O'Toole shared tips with Ryerson campus conservatives over Zoom on how to win a debate against liberals about residential schools. Come on, O'Toole. You just have to not be such a dick. Oh, it's this old story. Duncan Campbell Scott, Minister of Indian Affairs and Chief Architect of the residential school system on the system's objectives. I want to get rid of the Indian problem. I do not think, as a matter of fact, the country ought to continuously protect a class of people who are unable to stand alone. Our objective is to continue until there is not a single Indian in Canada that has not been absorbed into the body politic, and there is no Indian question and no Indian department, and that is the whole object of this bill. Ooh. Yeah. Like, yeah. Everybody hates Kautsky. Though I disagree with your methods, I still consider you a good friend and will withhold criticism until a more stable time. I believe you should take our circumstances into account, but you are a great revolutionary and you will serve as an inspiration to generations to come. This is exactly how I wish leftists would talk to each other. Oh, man. I've never had a disagreement with anyone that I would take to such a level to, like, separate from them. Like, as long as we're both attempting to move forward, I just think that, no, you can't take power through armed struggle. You have to do it through voting. Yeah, right. Oh, that's too much to read. Too much. Rob Ferguson, Ontario Chief Medical Officer Dr. David Williams just said rise in cases over the last 3 days is concerning. So can't clearly early reopen at this point. Rise may be Delta variant, right? So there's like already like a Delta variant. Soon we'll all be saying like, did you get the Delta shot? Right? Like, we'll reassess next week. Do you think the Andrew Yang for New York mayor is important? Yeah. Yeah. Culturally, it's very important. Like, he's an Asian American, and an Asian American being voted the mayor of New York, I think, would itself be something of a cultural touchstone. But also Andrew Yang is probably the closest thing to a progressive that exists in the United States, right? Like his whole plank during his presidential bid, his plank as a presidential bid was to do a basic income. And so, yeah, I think it is important. And I think that it indicates when is that election? When is that election? New York mayor election. No. When is it? Come on. Just give me the date. I don't care about any of this. Mayor odds. Come on. Oh, jeez. It's like the very next link was exactly the information I wanted. November 2nd. Yeah, okay. That's all I should have known that. Anyway, yeah, I think I do think it's important. I think if he were to win, it would actually be like something that we could point to as an indicator that our society is moving in a progressive direction and that people do want progressive ideas and progressive people in positions of power. Do I think that Andrew Yang is like the best person ever? No. Like, I think he has... I think there's a lot of policies and a lot of things that he hasn't given much thought in, right? I just think that I think he has passion for specific issues, but ultimately I just think he's a good man. You know, I think, and that counts for a lot. That counts for a lot. You know, like even though I think I disagree with him on certain things, or I think he hasn't really put much thought into certain things, like I don't think he has actually given much thought of the American empire, right? I don't think he thinks too much about like foreign policy or any of that kind of thing. But the very fact that he's standing up and saying, hey, maybe we should help people, that by itself, right? Like there are a ton of politicians who are literally saying, hey, you need to do it yourself and we're going to abandon you. And that's their like electoral plank. That's what they got elected on. So somebody getting elected saying, maybe we should help people, yeah, it's a big deal. Hey, Barnabas, how you doing? Glad you made it, bud. Were you still at the rally when Isabel said she wants to block a major road that time? No. I think I left before that. I'm in. I'm in. Let's do that. Like, let's do that. It's anything to get eyes on the issue, if you ask me. Anything to get eyes on the issue. Because, like, what's happening to the poor and the disabled? What's happening to the disabled here in Canada is shameful. It's criminal. Like, it is abandonment. I don't think there's another word that can be used. Like, it is abandonment. And I know for a fact that there are absolute sociopaths in the discourse who say, like, the most sociopathic shit about the disabled. Why do I know that? Because when I put the video up about that rally and the song, it gets, like, 330 views, quite a few upvotes, and quite a few, I got quite a few subscribers out of that video. So I know that it rallied a lot of people. But the comments on, like, the Reddit, when I shared it on Reddit, there were plenty of commenters who were just like, these guys just need to get a job, right? Oh, they're in a wheelchair. They could still do any office job. Like, they're just trying to take advantage. They're just trying to they're just using their disability to pull on people's heartstrings, right? Like, these fucking nightmare sociopaths who come out and are just like, yeah, sure, a blind lady who has cerebral palsy just needs to go get an office job, right? Like, Jesus. Conservative Lisa McLeod goes ballistic. Starts screaming. We gotta watch this. 2 minutes. We can do it. Let's see. It's always good to see somebody lose it in the House.
Mr. Speaker, my question is to the Minister of Health. I have recently talked to several performing art communities in St. Catharines, and they are asking a simple question. The government's reopening plan has made allowances for film, television, and high-performing athletes to prepare. However, has left out the protocols for live performers to rehearse. It feels like the arts were unfairly forgotten again. There is a lot at risk in Niagara. They cannot magically appear on stage. They need to start rehearsing today. Organizations in my community like Kate Leathers of Carousel Players and Rebecca Walsh at the Essential Collective Theaters have said without rehearsals now, they're at risk of canceling their summer season. This will be months of actors, musicians, and their techs not working. In Niagara, that means losing months of ancillary benefits to restaurants and small businesses. The arts sector is central to safe jumpstart our tourist economy. Minister, will you let performing art rehearse now like their counterparts in the film industry so they can be ready to open on day one of stage 2?
So before we move forward, this is actually a subject that's near and dear to my heart, because the first thing that gets cut is always the arts, right? And it's 100% the capitalists just attempting to destroy artists and keep them out of the conversation, right? That the only way that you can become a successful artist is to be co-opted by capitalists, right? And I know this is the truth because every single time any economist from any field, from any perspective, even neoliberal, does any analysis on the effect of funding the arts, they find that it grows the economy, right? The city of Stratford is proof of this, right? You create an arts scene, you fund an arts scene, well, what happens? People come to see the art, right? And so suddenly you have shops that pop up. Suddenly you have little trinkets being sold, gift shops, food vendors, all kinds of businesses. Suddenly you have like a fashion strip and a commercial district, right? Because you're funding an arts scene and artists and putting money towards that, right? And so every dollar you put in to the arts, you get $3 back. I think it's $3. You get money back out of the situation. So it's a positive gain every single time. And we don't fund the arts here in Canada because capitalists don't want there to be a culture that is non-capitalist. They don't want a culture that stands up and says, capitalism is fucking stupid. It doesn't work. It fails completely. Here is why. And the capitalists are well aware. Why are they well aware? Because that's exactly what they do in France. Because in France, they actually fund the arts. They actually erect entire theaters. They actually spend a ton of money in France on the arts. And what comes out of that is actually brilliant, beautiful art that nobody in the West sees. And most of it is carried with this commentary of like, yeah, capitalism is evil and stupid and we should get rid of it. Obviously. And so what happens? The youth see this, and then when the capitalists fund a politician to try and like take away a vacation day, they all get their cars burnt, right? They don't want that here in Canada. They don't want a people who actually see art that is anti-capitalist, and so they completely destroy it, completely cut it. And okay, this is not a conservative. This is NDP MPP who has stood up and asked, are we going to loosen restrictions to allow artists to be able to rehearse so they can be prepared for upcoming performances? Because the only way artists can actually make money in a capitalist society is by subserviating themselves to capitalists. So here's the response.
Minister of Heritage, Sport, Tourism, and Culture.
Nothing more than I would love to see our performance arts up and running right here, right now, but we are in a global pandemic, and I'm part of a cabinet and I am part of a team that takes the advice of the Chief Medical Officer of Health very seriously.
No, she doesn't.
I'm shocked that this government, they never stand up when we invest an extra $25 million into our iconic arts institutions, or when we invested $62 additional million into iconic institutions that include the ROM and the AGO. They don't stand up when we increase the budget to the Ontario Arts Council, but I'll tell you what, 15 months in, they're finally asking questions about the arts, the culture. I'm waiting for sport, and I'm also waiting for heritage, and I'd love to have a question on tourism, because I've got to tell you, the hardest hit sectors are the sectors that are part of this ministry, and I find it galling that they stand up only today, 15 months too late.
That's so stupid. Like her statements of like, we've given $25 million to the AGO or to this kind of stuff. Like literally, like who who are the main beneficiaries of those institutions, right? It's people like David Thompson. Like, you're giving $25 million to billionaires. Like, that's not helping artists. That's not helping people who are actually creating your art. That's not helping anybody who's involved in the cultural institution. Like, and that's all. Like, what she just did there is all bluster. That's just for show. That was just a show. That's all that was. Yeah, you're nailing it, Ruth. It's not Starbucks or Timmy's, so capitalists don't care, right? Like, and this is the real, like, capitalists are largely illiterate. Like, they don't know anything. They don't read. They don't actually look at anything important, because what matters is money. That's it. Like, if you worship money, if you are one of these people who worship money, and you think that money is the goal of the society and the main motivator for all things is money, then art is actually quite confusing to you, right? Like, amongst conservatives, abstract art is just considered scribbles. They literally, like, outright mock it, even though, like, abstract art, there's like hard evidence that shows that abstract art can have profound impacts on the people who are surrounded by it. There's this really great example. There was I forget his name. There's a famous abstract artist who made a piece, and it was the last piece that he made before he committed suicide, right? So he makes this piece and then he commits suicide, and this piece ends up being hung in Harvard, and it's only there for a semester before it has to be removed, because the students request it to be removed because it's making them feel bad. It's affecting their mood, right? So literally, here's a piece of abstract art that a guy who commits suicide after he makes, and it projects that emotion, the emotion of despair and sadness, into the space that it's put into. Yeah, okay. There's a reason the capitalists want to get rid of artists. They don't want artists to exist because they don't want people who are capable of making something to project any emotion whatsoever, right? Emotion means that you are not a robot who is just going beep boop, make latte, right? Like, if you are capable of emotion and are capable of empathy, and that gets cultivated, well, when you see a coworker get fired for no reason whatsoever, like, literally, I have seen people get fired because the owner came in and didn't like the way they looked. Literally, I have seen this happen. And if you have empathy and compassion inside of your heart, you might actually feel bad and then think less of the guy doing the firing. But if you worship money, as, like, we're supposed to, because that's what the capitalists tell us, we're supposed to worship money, then you can spin some kind of narrative that says, well, that person just needed to arrange their life better so that they just needed to worship the CEO more, right? Like, they needed to be more respectful and fall down in subservience, right? Yeah, dancing does not make me rich, so defund it. Capitalist, exactly. Can you say you did anything? Can you just say you did anything without repercussion? I don't understand what you mean there, Barnabas, sorry. Why don't MPs ever call out lies on the floor or follow through? Part of the problem is that there is a structure, like there's a talkback structure, and MPs can only go so far on the floor before the speaker actually does step in. There are, like, procedural rules. So, like, a great example of that was that moment where Jagmeet Singh called another MP racist because he was a racist, and the Speaker of the House demanded an apology and a retraction from Jagmeet Singh, and Jagmeet Singh refused, and so Jagmeet Singh was the one that needed to leave. So, I mean, big surprise. The rules benefit the racists. Like, it's a colonial system. And, like, who did they give $25 million to? Like, if you're giving $25 million to the AGO or the ROM, you're giving it to a billionaire. Like, that's who you're giving it to. Anthropology shows that art is a sign of a successful society. Well, and art is what survives the society, right? Like, in 100 years, people are going to think that we were just like this period of time here in Canada right now, that it was just dead. Like, we are culturally dead. We have no culture. Like, we have no arts. We've got nothing to show for any of this. And in 100 years, should there be survivors, we'll look back and we're going to find nothing. This is literally a dark age, and there's just nothing here, right? Meanwhile, you take a look at like ancient Greek societies and ancient Roman societies and things like this, and they have enormous structures built that were intended to last forever, huge theaters, like enormous, clear dedication to sculpture, artistic endeavor of all sorts. Like, we make a building, but we make it out of glass, so it'll be falling over in 50 years. Yeah, all we know about the Etruscans is their art, right? And so to tell me that art is not important, it's just like, it at this stage it's become embarrassing. It's become like super embarrassing. Even from a like strict science perspective. Like, I've definitely talked to like scientists and engineer types who are just like, oh, what do the arts have to do with blah blah blah? And I'm literally like, so that project that you're trying to manifest into reality, right? Did you or did you not have to imagine it first, right? Was there not a series of imaginations that needed to come before it gets manifested as a physical item in the world? And I'm not trying to say that manifesting as a physical item in the world is not important, but don't you think that the imagining of the item first is equally important? Like, things just don't appear, right? You need to imagine them first. And if you don't allow people and give people the space to imagine, to be creative in an imaginative sense, then you'll never create anything, right? Which is exactly what we're doing. Like, what's the big achievement of the last like 20 years is these smartphones, right? And that's literally just like Star Trek: The Next Generation. Hey, I keep seeing people walking around with these pads in Star Trek: The Next Generation. Like, that's the big achievement. Yeah, CRTC rejects its own 2019 decision on wholesale rates. I need to do a video on this. And, like, somebody pointed out to me that the head of the CRTC was a former TELUS, I believe. Like, formerly worked for TELUS. So it's just, like, it's super incestuous. Like, of course they're going to make that kind of decision to make it so that we have to pay these organizations more. It's disgusting. Oh, I know, buddy. My dog is in the back here whining away because he's like, more peanut butter. More peanut butter. Milo, you've had peanut butter. Come lie down, buddy. Come lie down. You're a good boy. Ugh. It's tough because he's so cute. He's so cute. He's so cute and little, and he's got a little face, and I look at him, and he's just like, please, please. And I'm just like, no, dude, you've had, like, a jar of peanut butter today. Like, you're fine. Confederacy of Treaty 6 First Nations dissolves agreement with Alberta government, condemns Kenny's comments on John A. Macdonald. I mean, Kenny should always be condemned. Like, that guy stands up and says anything, and it's just, like, the most cringy, embarrassing stuff. We're changing our prime minister. For the better, right? For the better, right? I love this meme. I love this meme generally. Just like the smile and the like. So great. Solidarity with Palestine now. National Farmers Union. That's actually a really big deal. Like the National Farmers Union? That'd be super cool. They're calling for, well, and this stuff is having an impact, right? Like the society is moving and is leaning against, like we no longer buy the both sides thing. It's just not real anymore. Like You literally just need to like show an Israeli city, like show every Israeli city, and like they look fine, everything's great. And then you're like, and this is what Gaza looks like, and it's just like a bombed out hellhole. And you're like, ah, yeah, this isn't a war. This isn't a conflict, right? It's pretty obvious what's happening here. Like, pretty obvious. I think you have to be really thick to think otherwise at this point. No cooperation, no comment. Missionary oblates who ran Kamloops School won't release records. Big shock. And the government's not going to stand up and be like, release those records. Like, you've got to release those records. And again, I'll say it for the people who didn't hear it the first time. Justin Trudeau is not going to launch an investigation against his own father. So if you actually want to see any movement on this, you're going to need to vote Justin Trudeau out. And it really is that simple. Like, if you genuinely want to move forward and begin the healing journey of learning about this, of exposing the venom, of figuring out what happened in a genuine way, you got to get rid of Trudeau. And there's no two ways about it, simply because he's not going to launch an investigation against his own father. Pierre Elliott Trudeau was the prime minister from 1968 through the 70s. The residential school system ends in 1996. There's absolutely no way that there's no documentation connecting Pierre Elliott Trudeau to these residential schools in some way or another, right? And I doubt that it's like Justin Trudeau is like, I know that document exists and I'm going to cover it up. It really is just like fear. He's just afraid that he'll find that. And so he's not going to do it. And it will never happen. There will be no level of pressure that could ever be applied to make a son launch an investigation that has the potential to tarnish his own father's legacy. It's just not going to happen. So if you want if you want to genuinely see movement on this, you got to vote Justin Trudeau out. You got to vote Liberals out. I think we should be doing that anyway, but I mean, if this is the thing that you're voting on, that's the truth of it. International Criminal Court called on to investigate Kamloops residential school finding. Yeah, we'll see how far that goes. I think that might be what I talk about in tomorrow's video, now that I'm thinking about it. Just the reality that, like, there's no way that Justin Trudeau is going to launch an investigation against his own father. It's just not going to happen. Benjamin Netanyahu ousted as Israel Prime Minister, replaced by Naftali Bennett. Who is Naftali Bennett? Not to be confused with Natalie Bennett. Who's Natalie Bennett? Not to be confused with Naftali Bennett. The Right Honourable, the Barris Bennett of Manor Castle. Okay, sorry, we are spending a minute. A British politician and journalist who served as the leader of the Green Party of England. Bennett was given a peerage in Theresa May's 2019 Okay. So she's just like British. Okay. Moving on. I don't really know. How would you ever confuse these two people, right? Not to be confused with this guy. This guy, not this lady. Although she is wearing glasses, right? She's wearing glasses. That could be a wig, don't you think? Take the wig off, take the glasses off, take the lipstick off, and do we end up? Could be. I don't think I've ever seen them in the same place at the same time. Have you ever seen these two people in the same place at the same time? I'm just saying. Okay. So he's been the Ministry of Economy, Minister of Religious Services, so he's part of the government already. So he's not an outsider by any stretch. Oh, Naphtali has better cheekbones. That's right, Robin. You got it. You got it. Minister of Defense. He's led the New Right Party. Yeah, so he's basically just like another Netanyahu. He's just another dude. It's not gonna change. This isn't changing anything. This isn't changing. This changes literally nothing. I don't need to see too much about that guy on the stream. No, I mean that's the long and short of it. This guy. How long is this video? I bet you this video is like 7 minutes. That's like 5 minutes too much to spend on that guy. Like literally. Oh, he's just a dude. Moving on. Yeah, Gen Z leading the pack as Toronto encourages people to get COVID-19 vaccine because Gen Z wants summer. Gen Z wants to get laid. That's all it comes down to. Gen Z wants to get laid. Look at this. Look at this deepfake here. That's actually a pretty impressive deepfake, right? Deepfakes are scary, man. Deepfakes are scary. Kim Jong-un exposed. Does he have ties with North Korea? That's so stupid. That's what I love about Gen Z memes and why like boomers really don't understand Gen Z memes. It's fascinating actually. It's fascinating. Sometimes I'll show like an older generation of people Gen Z memes and they'll just be like, "What am I don't even understand." And it's because they don't understand that it is supposed to be stupid. Like, it's supposed to be stupid. And something like this where it's like, Kim Jong-un exposed. Does he have ties with North Korea? It's so stupid. Oh, it's perfect. I love it. Okay, I don't know if I'll... you know what? Let's do it. During the 8 years of the Obama administration... I don't like what's happening. Okay, here we go. During the 8 years of the Obama administration, there were 38 mass shootings in America. During the 2.5 years of the Trump administration, there have already been 30. I wish I knew when this was taken. Hate crimes have increased since Donald Trump took office, and online hate speech is an epidemic. Why? Because Donald Trump encourages hate. Donald Trump does not value the lives of Muslims, immigrants, non-white people as equal to white Americans, and his false, violent, racist rhetoric encourages white supremacists, immigrant haters, and ignorant psychos to commit crimes. He may not pull the trigger, but he gave others the green light to pull the trigger. The president isn't just some guy off the street. His words carry weight. His words cause people to act. And when used irresponsibly, a president's words can become weapons. Next election, vote for someone who will respect and represent all Americans, rather than someone whose words inspire mass murder. I mean, there is truth in that like, Trump definitely crossed lines that the Democrats, don't. That's definitely true. This guy always deserves to not vote for me. He's a good guy, good commentator. This image is banned in China. Upvote, share. There you go. There you go. Making it happen. This is Francis. Francis believes that liberal democracies are the end point of humanity. Francis doesn't understand historical materialism, class struggle, and inherent instability of capitalism. Please, for the love of God, don't be like Francis. I don't actually know who this guy is, but... Ooh. Yeah, a big thing that's been going on, especially in that subreddit, but I've noticed it in other places as well, is that there's this like new fad to show the full footage of what happened in Tiananmen Square. Because like the implication always was like man stand in front of tank. We've all seen that, right? Man stand in front of tank. And man stand in front of tank. And the implication is that something bad happened after that, right? And that's generally how Western media portrays it. That the man stood in front of the tank and then probably gets obliterated or some kind of crime or something like this. But when you actually see like the full video, that man stands in front of the tank, actually gets up on top of the tank at one point, comes back down, leaves the tank starts to proceed, the guy comes back and stands in front of the tank again. One of the soldiers comes out of the tank and is like, does one of these, like, what's up, bud? And then his friends come and take him away, and that's the whole story of, like, the Tiananmen Square, right? Like, and what we call the Tiananmen Square massacre is actually, like, a much, much different story than what we understand. Dude, I don't understand Gen Z memes, and I'm 31. Yeah, I know. Sometimes I do look at them, and I'm just like, okay, you guys do you. You guys do you. But if you just accept the base premise that it's supposed to be stupid, usually that's how you find a way through. Ruth, the Conservatives would look for stuff on Daddy Trudeau. That wouldn't be an NDP thing. But again, it's for the same reasons the Conservatives probably wouldn't do it, right? Because, like, Mulrooney was in power during that period of time. I'm completely blanking. Who's an important Conservative leader that existed in, like, the 50s? Mackenzie King, maybe? Anyway. Yeah, the Conservatives aren't going to investigate it because if anybody gets indicted over this, it's the Conservatives. Like, if anybody, like, they might find information about the Liberals and the Liberals just sort of nodding along, right? Or the Liberals, like, checking a box, or the Liberals, like, signing off on some kind of problematic document or something. Like, that's what they'll find in the liberal sense. They're going to find Conservatives who are like, eradicate the Indian! Like, we already, they were saying it in Parliament. Like, we already have documents of them doing this. So, like, if that's what they were saying in public, what the hell was happening in private, right? Like, no, the Conservatives are definitely not going to do that. They're going to, it would completely, like, one of the major arguments of the Conservative Party is that, like, we have a long lineage and a long history, and we'd like to conserve the history of Canada and conserve. And then if it comes out that all these Conservatives were genocidal maniacs attempting to eradicate First Nations people are going to be like, what exactly are we conserving? What is this conserving we're attempting to do? Pope refuses to apologize. Yeah. The Kamloops school was run by the Catholic Church. Yeah. It's shameful what this Pope is doing, right? Like, and I mean, let's be clear. He's like the CEO of a major corporation, right? Like, he wants to sort of pretend as though this is a Canadian issue that needs to be resolved internally with Canada. And yet another reason why there won't be an investigation, right? Like, the Catholics don't want an investigation to go on this. It'd be a major indictment of Catholicism. I'll link my favorite political Gen Z meme in Discord, but it's kind of loud, so if you show it, adjust volume. Let's get hype. Okay, hold on. Justice for Waluigi. I'm in. Okay, hold on.
Why can't we just have Waluigi? Why? They will not give us Waluigi even though we've been asking for it. We want him. It would be the meme event of the decade. They obviously hear us.
Is this all just like Waluigi? Wow. It's just this for 3 minutes straight. Robin. How high are you when you watch this? You don't need to answer. I'm probably going to, when this stream is over, I'm probably just going to put that on, smoke some weed, and just be like, yeah, hit me with Waluigi, baby. Let's go. Wah! It's the Waluigi to socialism pipeline. That's what I'm talking about. That's prime Gen Z stuff right there, man. Just like stupid, but still like in the realm of like political commentary and political kind of stuff, but just like SpongeBob level stupidity, right? Like SpongeBob had just like stupid moments. Which, honestly, like, so did, like, Looney Tunes and, like, the old Disney stuff was just stupid. There was just stupid shit happening. You got me hooked. You got me hooked while, you got me hooked with the statement, it's the Waluigi to socialism pipeline. They're all laughing while crying that the world is burning around them. Yeah, which is fair. Yeah. Like, I can't imagine what it must be like to be, like, 16 right now. I can't imagine what it must be like to be living in a society where, like, like, when I was growing up, the generation above me was, like, kind of angsty, right? Gen X. They were angsty, but, like, still sort of, and they were kind of complaining because of, like, the structure and the system, but they were still moving on and still finding their way through it, right? And then the generation above them was literally like, nope, just work hard and everything will work out, and it'll totally, everything will be totally fine. You just need to work harder, right? So work harder. These guys actually did work hard, so they kind of did okay, right? And then the millennials get totally fucked, like absolutely totally ramrodded. And so now there's Gen Z, right? And Gen Z is watching these guys above them get totally ramrodded, right? And the guys that are above them, Gen X, are looking at them, and like Gen Y, and are looking at them and being like, yeah, that's what's happening. Yep. And then the boomers are so far away, and the boomers are literally lying on their deathbed going, just work harder. Just go in and shake his hand. Just go in and give him your resume and shake his hand and get a job, and then you'll take the place over. You'll do it. Just work hard, right? And so it looks. So from the Gen Z perspective, it looks insane. It looks absolutely insane that, like, the millennials are being demolished, Gen X is standing there, like, doing okay, but being like, yeah. And then the boomers are insane. They're just like wackadoo nutbags. Yeah, jowls shaking. Exactly, Wigwip. How you doing, bud? Thanks for being here. And, like, if I'm 16, 17, 18, hell, if I'm under the age of 30, I'm just like, fuck, this place needs to burn to the ground. Like, this place is a nightmare. And I am to the point now where, like, if I find a like 25-year-old who's voting liberal or conservative, I'm just gonna be like, what is wrong with your brain, dude? There's something wrong. There's just something wrong in your brain. If you're under the age of 30 voting conservative or liberal, there's just something wrong in your brain. Capitalism is a right-wing system that prioritizes owners and profit. Socialism is a left-wing system that prioritizes workers and community. Liberalism is the left wing of capitalism, thus it is a right ideology. Fascism is the right wing of capitalism, thus it is a far-right ideology. Yep. I love that, because it's just, like, as clean as it gets. Any of these idiots that are standing around being like, communism and communism is Nazism, they're the same thing. It's like, what? That's embarrassing. For 100,000 years, life was affordable, and then one generation, everything became unaffordable. Yeah. What do you think happened? Is there a rule against smoking weed live on YouTube? Yes. Federal government sent $9 million worth of COVID relief funding to dead people. And the estates of those who received the money won't need to pay it back. You know what? $9 million? Yeah, okay. I don't care. This is like, I'm glad they reported it, but I know for a fact that there's going to be some conservative in here who's just going to lose their mind. $9 million out of $800 million program went to the wrong place, and they're going to try and recover it. Here, where's the dumbness? There's going to be dumbness. Okay, I don't care anymore. ADHD brain says, I don't care. Moving on. Oh shit, here we go again. Uh-oh, MySpace just sold all the data about your emo face to the Russians. If your party ain't this lit, don't bother inviting me. I bet you this picture right here was made as like CIA propaganda to be like, we need to protect against the forces of the whole rest of the world. Look what they're doing to America. And meanwhile, I'm looking at that being like, yeah, I mean, death to America, right? Jason Kenney concerned Canadians learning their history. The Beaverton, just like knocking it out of the park yet again. Elementary schoolers got to submit names for Colorado's new snowplows, and damn, abolish ice. 3rd grade Eagleview Elementary School. I love it. Barack Snowbama. I love that. That would be tough. That would be tough for me. I'd be looking at that and I'd be like, Okay. Everybody in the chat right now. Type in which of these two you'd like to see. Let's do a poll. Let's do an informal poll. Abolish ICE or Barack Snowbama. Okay? Just put in either ICE or Snowbama. I don't care how you indicate it. Just put in which one of those two you would vote for the name of your snowplow. Share of income going to the top 10%. Union membership. Got a couple of abolish ICEs. Mark, how you doing, bud? Thanks for popping in. Don't just as a reminder, don't please like, share, subscribe, and comment on the video. That's how this happens. What glitters is gold? Nice to see you. Thanks for popping in. Everybody's saying ice. Everybody says, you know what? Because it works in two ways, right? Like that's what it's got to be. That everybody's like, it's a snowplow that's abolishing ice, so it like really, really works. And then also like, you know, abolish ICE. Like, let's get rid of this organization. It's brutal. Like, ICE is just brutal, eh? Like, we gotta... What's ICE stand for? I always forget. Immigrant... No. Why am I forgetting what ICE stands for? Oh my goodness. ICE, immigration... Yeah, exactly. They would suddenly remove that entry. U.S. Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, right. Like, it's so crazy to me that here's this organization, and they just present as, like, totally normal, right? So, let's take a look. On an average day, ICE, narcotics seized. So, 4,000 pounds of narcotics seized. And this gets really, really crazy once you realize, okay, let's, you guys know me. Open a map. Open a map. Any excuse to open a map. Map, map, map. Map, map, map. Any excuse to open the map. Okay. So, ICE. Seizing 4,000 pounds of narcotics. Right? Oh, okay. That all sounds great. I mean, I think that we should legalize all drugs because we shouldn't criminalize it whatsoever. But did you know that they're growing poppies to make heroin in Afghanistan? And that's a big, big reason why they will never leave Afghanistan. And so literally, the CIA grows heroin in Afghanistan, sends it over. Where do you think they're sending it? Where do you think it goes? What do you think's happening? Right? And then it comes on up, and they try to funnel it through into the United States, sometimes successfully. And what do? They have an institution so that they can seize these narcotics, arrest the people who are so literally go overseas, bomb and demolish, and destroy everything you see here in order to grow the drugs, right? Send them over to South America, bomb and destroy everything around here so that people have to become things like drug mules, right? Have to become like this sort of stuff, and then send them on over here so that they can end up being arrested by a different institution. Sounds really stupid, eh? When you put it like that, John, it sounds really fucking stupid. And this is an average day. On an average day, ICE seizes 4,000 pounds of narcotics, which the United States creates. They arrest 87 people. They seize almost $5 million worth of currency and assets, all of which I'm sure is completely legitimate. They help identify 6 victims. They arrest 284 people administratively. They detain 335 people. Oh, they conduct 509 removals. So that means they kick in somebody's doors and kidnap them. 12 gang members. And they manage 3.26 immigration cases. This needs to be abolished. Like, this whole thing is a disaster from the outset. The second that you realize that the people they're dealing with are humans and not, like, you know, the other. Like, these numbers are and they just, like, are saying them as if this is like, yeah, this is a normal society. Completely normal, right? Normal societies definitely steal $5 million worth of assets from their citizens, right? Normal societies definitely kick in $509 a day, right? I think Pakistan and China raised the price on poppy, and Afghanistan grows it, and they have tons of lithium ion. They will never leave Afghanistan. Yeah, no, that's true. They've just privatized everything, right? They've just privatized it. It's literally just become what's the this is important. Afghanistan population. So about the population of Canada, about the same population of Canada lives in Afghanistan. And, like, so they just manage that population, and it's just about stealing the resources, right? Like, this, as far as, if you're an American, all you care about is how to steal the resources, how to get cheap labor, right? Anyway, that's my ICE rant. And, like, the fact that this is just being reported, like, completely normal. That everything is just like, yeah, totally normal. Yeah, what a normal day. Normal day. Oh, yeah, your society's not fascist at all. Happy 32nd anniversary to the defeat of the Western Color Revolution attempt. Fantastic. U.S. reveals COVID vaccine sharing plan. Canada is a priority. Yeah. Like, that was eventually going to happen. Yeah, Canada mining companies have their hands in it all, of course. Something like, what was it, like 75% of mining companies are based in Canada? Like, whoops, sorry, buddy. I didn't mean to hit you with that lighter, bud. Flicked that lighter, it landed right on my dog. My dog just like, what? You're a good boy, buddy. You're a good boy. Do you want to come up on the lap? Do you want to come up? Do you want to come up? No, you're feeling sleepy now. Yeah, you are. Yeah, you are. What a good little boy. Okay. Ugh, gotta spend a little time and pet that pug. If you don't pet the pug, are you really living? Are you really living? The Belarus Democratic Forum is launching a fundraising campaign to pay €11 million bounty for the arrest of dictator Lukashenko. That's hilarious, because, like, Lukashenko keeps winning elections. That's what's so funny about calling him a dictator. Like, the UN has observed these elections. They are elections. They are being elected. I was completely right, by the way. So Belarus released a statement regarding the whole situation and what's happening there, right? So the Belarus, like, diplomatic scandal. This is what's happening. So there's a fellow by the name of Roman Protasevich, I believe that's his name. He is in a plane, right, that gets downed in Belarus, and then Protasevich is arrested, okay? That's the narrative that we're getting pumped into our airwaves, into Western media. And then the narrative is that Lukashenko intentionally downs this plane to arrest a journalist, right? You know, like we did to Not Snowden, not Manning, the other guy. The other guy. So like we did to the other guy. Oh my God, that's annoying. And so we did exactly that narrative. Like that's exactly what we do. And so we accused Belarus of doing it. And so the Belarus government comes out with a statement and they say, Assange, Julian Assange. Thank you, Jeff. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. That was going to kill me. And so Julian, so Protasevich, right, so the West is saying, oh, you downed this plane, and so Belarus releases a statement, and the statement literally is, so what happened is that we got a bomb threat warning, like the plane went into the air, and we got a bomb threat warning from some of the members of the EU saying, we're concerned that there's a bomb on that plane. And so the pilot made the call and decided to land in Minsk, and that the idea that Lukashenko orchestrated any of this is ludicrous because he found out about it after it all happened. So it's pretty clear that this whole thing is being orchestrated, right? That it's EU members who are orchestrating an attempt to defame Belarus in order to increase sanctions. And why would they want to increase sanctions? Because the Belt and Road Initiative runs straight through Minsk into Europe. Which I called, by the way. I called this, so I'm very proud of myself. That it's like, I'm right. About a week ago, I said exactly this. I made a video about it. And then out comes the Belarusian government and is like, yeah, that's exactly what's happening. And I was like, yes, I'm the smartest man alive. And so the Belt and Road Initiative runs right through here, Belarus. And Belarus, who's Belarus's major trading partners? Well, it's Russia, and China, right? They're not really even trading like as much with Europe generally. And if you look at Belarus's economy, Belarus, after the fall of the Soviet Union, Belarus didn't fall for this neoliberal bullshit. The rest of the world, and the really good comparison is to compare the Ukraine to Belarus, and I shouldn't say the Ukraine. That's really bad. To compare Ukraine to Belarus, and Ukraine, their economy, like after the collapse of the Soviet Union, their economy tanks. And they have not yet recovered, right? Because they privatized everything and did a whole bunch of neoliberalism. Belarus did not privatize, kept everything state-run, kept a lot of the policies in place from the Soviet Union, and they've got one of the strongest economies on the continent. They've got stronger economies than Germany. They've got a stronger economy than France. They've got stronger economies than Europe, than members of the European Union, right? And it's because they have centralized economic control, which the people continuously vote for. So this idea that Lukashenko is a dictator that's suppressing people, and incidentally, the guy who gets arrested from the plane, this Protasevich fellow, yeah, you know why he's arrested? Because he's a Nazi. Because he's literally a Nazi coming from the Ukrainian Nazi movement, the Young Front. Right? Like, he's a fucking Nazi, and here we are in the West being like, what, this brave journalist, we need to release this journalist, he's doing good work. He's a Nazi who has organized with Nazis in order, and their stated agenda is the violent overthrow of the Ukrainian government and taking it over through violent force. He's a Nazi. Nazis don't have rights. Do what you want with this guy. Anyway, it's just, that was a big, long way of me saying that I analyzed something that was happening politically on the world stage, and I was completely correct. You got to take the wins when you get them, man. From Jens, is it on? I support the Sandinista National Liberation Front. the Workers' Party of Korea, Communist Party of Cuba, Communist Party of China, Naxalites. You know what? There's one thing I want to talk about China, right? Because I also do support the initiatives going on in the Communist China Party going. But I've been looking closer at Hong Kong, right? And I think that China is actually making mistakes in Hong Kong. That Hong Kong elections. That what has caused all of these protests can be broken down right here. That this is the most important thing that's going on. And there's a lot of confusion and there's a lot of propaganda on both sides. And there's a lot of CIA involvement and there's a lot of power struggle going on. A lot of pro-Beijing forces and a lot of pro-independence and then also pro-Western forces. So there's a lot of forces going on. But the one thing that can't be denied, and Barry Weisletter of Socialist Action, which is an organization that's great and everybody should join it, he pointed this out to me, that like, John, it doesn't matter if the CIA is involved, it doesn't matter how many what forces are actually involved, you can't deny the fact that there are hundreds of thousands of people on the streets in prolonged protest. Like, the CIA can't do that. The CIA can't manifest that. That has to be a legitimate outrage from the populace itself. And when he said that, I was like, that is a really, really, really good point. Like, the CIA can't just manifest hundreds of thousands of people, right? So I started taking a look on it, and the thing that I found was this, that the Chinese government really only has one request of Hong Kong. That when Hong Kong flipped from being owned by the British to being owned by the Chinese came in and said, you guys can run this place however you like, okay? We just don't want to see an independence movement. That's really what we're not interested in seeing that. And so Hong Kong agreed. But now what's happened is the legislative body, the elected legislature, legislative people, that are in the council, in the legislative council, are beginning to see a turn, not an anti-Beijing turn necessarily, but definitely like they're an independence movement, or like what's called a pro-democracy movement, is building in Hong Kong, and to the point where they could seize legislative power, right? And that's a problem, right? And so they, the current legislative council, changed things, and you can see it. It's all right here, right? So you have directly elected geographical constituencies, boink, right? That's about half, right? Half are directly created, nominated by district councilors, directly elected. So still fairly democratic, right? People who are nominated by district councilors, but then directly elected through a process. And there's very, very few of them. Very, very few of them. And then indirectly elected, trade-based, functional constituencies. Now, I don't 100% know what that exactly means, but my assumption is it's like a guild, right? Like guild workers, right? Think about it that way. So, like, you're in the steel workers union. So you elect the person that you want to see here, and there's 70 seats. So half of them are like being elected by like trade unions, and this is direct democracy, all of this, okay? And then these guys are a little wiggly, but still, like, the process is fairly democratic. So then they changed it to this. Now there's 90 seats. So instead of there being 35 seats in a 70-seat structure, there's only 20 seats that are directly elected. It's a huge drop, not only in raw numbers, but in percentage, right? Instead of it being about 50%, now you're only looking at about 20% is directly elected. Huge drop. This by itself, this change by itself is like, yep, onto the streets we go. Absolutely. Absolutely. Onto the streets we go. It's a major, major problem. And the idea that this is being supported by China is in my view, a major strategic blunder. Like, forget about ideology, right? It's a strategic blunder. Like, why are you doing that? It's a total gaffe. And then your indirectly elected trade functional constituencies remain the same in terms of the raw numbers, but now are more than the direct proportional. So your business and your trade unions and all of this now have more power, but they have less power overall because there's more seats. So by a percentage, they've actually declined in power, right? So if you're a trade unionist or you're part of the of that organization within Hong Kong, you're on the street as well because your power has diminished as well. And then they've gotten rid completely these green guys here. So if you're part of this, you're on the streets as well because now you have no representation whatsoever. And then now, who's the red? Newly created election committee constituency has the most amount of power and also has almost 50% of the overall power. And what are they? Come on. Explain it. Come on, you jerks. Oh, I hate that they're not just explaining what this thing is. Anyway, I've dug in this before. These guys are unelected. These guys are not part of the. These guys are not part of like a direct election body. It's closer to the Canadian Senate, where they're appointed, right? That you get appointed to this position. So, absolutely, if you're in Hong Kong right now, right? If you're in Hong Kong right now, you should absolutely be in the streets. It is absolutely correct, in my view, to say, no, this is anti-democratic. It is anti the will of Hong Kong. It is authoritarian. It is completely accurate to say all of those things. And in my view, it is a major gaffe by China to be pursuing this course. It is a major, 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 major gaffe. And hopefully they will learn sooner rather than later that it is better and easier to negotiate with pro-democracy forces that are getting into the legislature than it is to try and maintain power through this authoritarian method. It's not going to work, right? It isn't. It isn't going to work. The people of Hong Kong will ensure that it doesn't, and it like gets really bad. Like, what are some of the events that occurred during all of this? There were like a bunch of people who were elected who get thrown out of office. Like, it's absolutely like they postponed because of the coronavirus. They postponed the election in the first place, and then they ousted a whole bunch of legislatures who were pro-democracy and who weren't necessarily pro-Beijing. They just ousted them. Is this it? 53 pro-democracy activists? No. Come on. And you can see it's totally affected the opinion polling. Look at this. Ooh, right? Like pro-democracy, pro-Beijing, right? Like, people are mad, and they should be. It's a major change to their legislative system to entrench Chinese power in Hong Kong into their electoral system. And sure, yeah, the CIA is definitely involved. And sure, yeah, Western forces are interested in an independence movement. And sure, yeah, there are fascist forces. And sure, yeah, and all that kind of stuff. All of that aside, if this happened in Canada, I would take to the streets about it. And I would be ashamed and people who didn't should be ashamed of themselves. Like, if this happened in Canada, we would absolutely take to the streets about it. So, I am generally pro-China on this channel, and I try to be more realistic, I think, than a lot of Western commentators about China, and I try to present a more even, like, they're just people, right? Like, that's my position, is that, like, China is just a group of people trying to make it happen. They're just trying to figure it out, just like everybody else, right? The Americans are trying to figure it out. The South Americans are trying to figure it out. The Africans are trying to figure it out. Everybody's just trying to figure it out. They're not evil. We shouldn't look at them and be suspicious of them automatically just because they're Chinese, right? Like, we shouldn't have, like, this xenophobic fear of them, the way that, like, the National Post does, for example. And, like, I will defend what is or is not the truth in Chinese borders and all this kind of stuff, but when I take a look at Hong Kong, I'm just like, bad decisions are being made. Bad decisions are being made. And, like, I do sort of understand where China's coming from in regards to their desire to maintain control of Hong Kong, because they absolutely do not want Hong Kong to become independent and then start to negotiate with America, right? Because America is desperate to cause trouble in the South China Sea. They absolutely want to cause trouble in the South China Sea, and an independent Hong Kong is trouble in the South China Sea. So I get where China is coming from. I just think that this tactic is not going to work. It's just not going to work. Like, it's going to fail. And when it fails, America will be able to hold up the flag and wave it and be like, democracy, democracy. No, you don't get any. Hong Kong gets it. Democracy. Anyway, that's been bubbling in my head for a while, so I wanted to say that out loud. So yeah, like, I support the Communist Party of China, but I mean we have to be critical of them as well, and I think that's true of anything, right? I think that's true of anything, right? Like, I just don't see why being supportive equals being non-critical. Like, if somebody's making a mistake, I think they should know about it. A beautiful building is wasted on capitalist Russia. What the future main museum of the Russian armed forces in Patriot Park will look like. That's a beautiful structure. Man, that's really pretty. It's a shame that it's part of the armed forces. Like, that would be a beautiful building for, like, put that in the middle of, like, oh, where is this? Where is this? What's the name of it? Patriot Park. There it is. That's what I need. Patriot Park, Russia. I love maps. I love maps. Love me some maps. Come on. We gotta be able to see this thing. It is an armed forces building, though, right? So they may have... Although this is Google. Google doesn't care what the Russians think. I feel like we should be able to see this. Oh. There we go. Is that it? No, that's not it. Okay. I'm over it. If anybody else finds it, tell me what the coordinates are. Okay. When they try to unify with Taiwan is when things will get dicey. Yeah. Like, if... It'd be interesting, right? Like, it would be interesting if... how do I get out of this view? Come on. Oh, there we go. Back to the map. It would be really interesting if places like Taiwan, the Philippines, even like Vietnam, right, and like Hong Kong, if they sort of banded together and created like a federation, right? That would be super, super, super interesting. And like really create some very interesting and strange happenings in the South China Sea. And you mean like China unifying with attempting to unify with Taiwan? Yeah, I don't know if that's in the cards, right? Like, is Taiwan gonna go for that? And like, it's tough for me to so far, China isn't acting strictly imperial, right? Like they haven't outright gone in and just taken over territory with military force. Not that I've seen. Feel free to correct me on that. I'll gladly be corrected by that. Yeah, a lot of young Taiwanese tend to be pro-DDP, anti-Beijing, while the older generation, for the most part, tends to be pro-KMT, pro-Beijing. And technically, Taiwan and a small part of Fujian is controlled by a version of China, the old ROC, Republic of China. Yeah, which became somewhat democratic in the 80s. Well, and China does have a somewhat democratic structure. It's just, it's democratic after you enter the Communist Party of China, right? Like, they have to have a decision-making apparatus somehow. And because they have what's called, like, the one party, right? Like, we look at that and we go, like, one party? That seems so... But there are, like, factions within that party. And they have debate and negotiation, and they vote on things. So it's just, like, a different type of... It's not Western parliamentary democracy, so we get to pretend like it's not democracy. And it's more complex. It's more nuanced than that. But anyway, yeah, I'll be curious to see what happens. Because, like, right now it does look like China's general strategy is to just plow right in to the Belt and Road Initiative. And I don't know why they wouldn't really stick on this, right? Stick with the Belt and Road Initiative, right? Keep trying to include more and more nations and more cultures in this. I guess what I'm trying to get at is I don't fully understand why the mania exists for nations to try and, like, gobble up nations beside them. You know what I mean? Like, it's like a real, like, it's like once you get to, like, this level of large federation, you become part of, like, a video game, and you're just like, oh, I gotta have it because I gotta have it. It's gotta be part of, like, China, or it's gotta be part of America because we're big and we want to get bigger, right? Like, it's sort of... Okay, hold on. They didn't make John Cena apologize for calling Taiwan a country, right? They didn't make John Cena do that, right? John Cena did that once he realized that he had stepped into, like, a potential political snafu, and he himself got ahead of it, right? I think people are blowing that up. Like, they didn't make John Cena do anything. Like, what's so wrong with releasing a statement or making a statement and then observing that in retrospect, or having somebody come up to you and be like, hey man, you know, technically that, and then him going, oh, that's right, I'm going to get ahead of this and I'm just going to apologize and be done with it. And that's exactly, in my perspective, that's what happened, right? Oh yeah, bud, thanks for that insight. Thanks for chiming in with all that. I love that. Like, fun fact about China's party system, technically there's 9 parties in China. 8 of them are part of a united front, and they don't have much power at the political level. Not parliamentary, but at least not completely one party. Yeah, things... Yeah, of course it was cringe. And it was criticized as a word salad. That's classic, Western analysis, right? Like, but, like, what's so wrong with the idea... I don't think Hollywood made him apologize either. I think that John Cena said something. Somebody probably said to him, like, hey, you know, there's, like, a long political history there, right? Like, the Chinese might not view Taiwan as its own country, and, like, there are people even within Taiwan who don't see that. And John Cena probably just went, oh, yeah, you know what? I think you're right. I think I may have stepped in it, so I'm just going to turn around. And if he had never apologized, no one might have, like, maybe no one would have ever noticed, right? Like, that's the thing that's funny about this, is that if he hadn't apologized, it's possible no one would have noticed. That it just would have gone by, and maybe somebody at some point would have said something to him. I just think this comes down to the fact that I think John Cena is just a good dude, right? Like, why can't it just be the fact that John Cena is a good dude? Why can't it just come down to the fact that John Cena cares about the people who are around him, cares about the opinions and attitudes of the people that he works with, of the people that he interacts with, and when he recognizes that he may have offended somebody or stepped in something, he sought out on his own initiative a desire to rectify a problem that may or may not have existed in the first place. Why can't it simply be ahead of... they want the Chinese market for movies. They pass scripts for approval. If he didn't apologize, they wouldn't release the movie in China. But, like, I just... And I don't think... Like, why does it have to be so, like, hard line like that? Right? Like, I said something that potentially could have been seen as an insult. I apologized for it. These people were in business together. Like, I feel like there's like an ominous sort of view that's being taken of this. And I just don't have that ominous view. I just don't have it. It doesn't exist for me in this situation. John Cena is doing business with these people. He said something that may or may not have been interpreted as an insult, and he decided to apologize for it. Why can't that simply be the narrative? And why does there need to be this, like, ominous, ever-present, like, authoritarian aspect of it? Like, if I were to transfer this to the American Midwest, right, where I am in business with somebody from Nebraska, I said something out of my own ignorance of the situation that could have been taken as an insult, and before I even get feedback that it was an insult or that anyone is even insulted, I went ahead and I just apologized for a misstep. Like, if we were talking about, like, Nebraska, no one would give a fuck at all. But because I'm in business with China, authoritarian, oversight, major commentary, anti-Chinese, xenophobia. I just don't have it. Doesn't happen. He's in business with these people, and he wanted to smooth relations, and he did so. Good for him. Yeah, look what happened to the NBA. Yeah. I don't fully know the story of what happened to the NBA. I do know that they stopped filming in the NBA, and he said it in Mandarin, right? Sure. There were boycotts against the NBA for the Chinese side because the Houston Rockets GM at the time supported the pro-Hong Kong protests. Yeah. I mean, again, like, that's business, baby. Like, that's business. Like, are the Chinese... Like, the Chinese have their own interests, right? And, like, why would they do business with people who are actively working against their own interests? And I, as an independent commentator who have no connection to China at all, can say that, like, what China is doing here strategically is a mistake. Like, it's a strategic error. I get why they're doing it. It makes sense on a like empire building kind of a level, but it's not going to work, right? Like, it's it's causing more problems, right? Like, it's causing more problems for China. Look at the problems it's creating. It's causing problems with the NBA. It's causing problems with business. It's causing problems with other institutions that we have. Like, it's this ongoing unfolding of problems that China is creating for itself through its own actions in Hong Kong, when they could just as easily step back and say, okay, Hong Kong, you're going to elect your leadership. You're going to elect the people you're going to elect. And we, as the Chinese government, are going to negotiate and speak with the people that you elect and try to find a consensus. But that's not what they're doing. That's not what they're doing. And it's blowing up in their face. And it's blowing up in their face in clear and obvious ways. And if they took a more diplomatic tact, I think that they would be more successful. But they're not doing that in regards to Hong Kong. They're being very authoritarian in regards to Hong Kong. And we know they're being authoritarian because here it is. Right? There it is. This is literally all the evidence you need. Like, yeah. But in regards to the John Cena thing, Like, John Cena's in business with these guys. He wants to smooth things over, so he's going to. I just don't think there's a scandal there, you know? Like, why is that a scandal? I would like things to be smooth with my business partners. Is it just because they're Chinese? Is that the problem? Quebec is the Hong Kong of Canada. Yeah, I think that's actually right. I think that, like, if you look at the history of Quebec, like, I see the analogy. I think that you're right. That's what a great clean, easy way to kind of talk about that. Want their own government, want their own constitution. That's right. But Canada wants them to be federated, and so is constantly needing to negotiate with them, right? And Quebec even had its own, like, separatist vote. Remember that in the 90s, right? Chrétien's all like, it has to be 51%, that kind of thing. And interesting. I like that analogy a lot. That's a really, really good analogy. I'm going to use that analogy in the future. That's really good. And okay, so but, like, imagine, right? Imagine that the Quebec separatist movement took hold and they started to get into their own legislative body and they started to gain power and, like, started to get into the seats. The Bloc Québécois seizes power and actually starts to put forward this agenda, and then Canada imposes this. What do you think would happen in Quebec? Like, what do you think would happen? And it would be a complete disaster. Like, I just think it's one of these cases of total blowback, right? Like, once the people of Hong Kong make it clear that they're not going to be ruled this way, and they have made it clear that they're not going to be ruled this way, right? It's going to snap back. And when it snaps back on the Chinese, the people of Hong Kong are not going to be in a position where they're going to want to negotiate with China. So to me, it's like a total disaster for China. I think that what they've done is strategically a bad idea. And they're going to have to constantly be spending resources to maintain this, right? That if they're willing to do this and erect this kind of stuff, well, what's next, right? That's what's next for these guys? Because if this is the path that they're willing to take with Hong Kong, it's only going to get worse, and they're going to spend more resources, more time. It's going to look worse. It's going to make and it's going to threaten their whole project, right? It's going to threaten their whole project if they continue down this way. Right? It's going to continuously allow Westerners and imperialists to point at Hong Kong and say the entire project of communism fails, right? So they should stop. They should take a lesson from what happened. They should take a lesson from what happened here in Canada, right? That the separatists took hold. We actually had a whole thing about it. We voted. Quebec decided they wanted to stay. Because ultimately, I do think that when push came to shove, Quebec understood that it's probably in their best interests to be part of Canada, right? And I feel like the same exact thing would happen here. Like you're telling me that Hong Kong, push comes to shove, they're actually going to go for independence? You really think so? Like, you really think so? I have a really hard time believing that. Like, it makes sense that they would want to elect their own leadership and have their own government and have their own constitution and have all that kind of stuff. But, like, you got this, you kind of got this big giant off your bow here. Like, I have a really, really hard time buying into this idea that Hong Kong, it would actually go for independence. It would probably end up going for concessions from China, if anything. So anyway, this whole section is just like, I just think that China is making bad decisions, and oddly short-sighted from what I've come to see in China. Like, this is what I see of China. This to me is like, this is not short-term thinking coming out of China, right? This is long-term, multi-generational long dynasty level thinking coming out of China. The Belt and Road Initiative, this is what I expect from China. This is what I see coming out of China, right? This situation with Hong Kong feels very, very short-sighted, feels very, very heavy-handed, and just kind of stupid, frankly. Like, just kind of stupid. Like, really? So let's say Hong Kong did elect leadership and did suddenly become an independent state and did declare its independence from China. Does that make it much different than Vietnam? Does that make it much different than Taiwan? Does that make it much different than the Philippines? Like that's the worst case scenario for China. You know, if they just stood back and did nothing. If they said to the Hong Kong people, you are a part of China, we're going to allow you to have your own elections, we're going to allow you to form your own government, we're going to do all that kind of stuff because we trust you as people of China. And if Hong Kong stood up and said, we want our independence, I mean, China would be like, okay, like what's, come on. What are we talking about here? 7 million people? No, I know about the one China policy. I'm just saying, like, this kind of falls back to a question of fundamentalism, right? Like, that fundamentalism itself is a core evil, right? Like, once you take a fundamentalist view of anything, like, it's all great to say, like, we would like to have a one China policy, like, that we should move forward. But you're seeing in Hong Kong why being a fundamentalist towards that is a failure, right? Like, it's all well and good to say, like, it would be great if we could all, like, federate together under, like, a Chinese federation and all of that. But, like, when you actually move forward on that kind of idea in a fundamentalist way, you see what it causes. It causes problems, which is why fundamentalism always fails. Because you're always going to encounter a situation that where your policy isn't quite the answer, doesn't quite work. And, like, the more I talk about this, and the more I think about it, the more, like, literally we're talking about 7.5 million people. Less than the population in New York, right? And, like, this is what the Chinese are willing to risk their entire reputation on. This is the chink in the armor where they're allowing people to get a blade underneath and actually criticize them rightfully. Like, the criticisms that are coming against China, against Hong Kong, are well met and well deserved, and accurate, and within sympathizers, people who should be sympathetic towards China, right? Communists, socialists. It causes doubt. It creates doubt in people who would otherwise be sympathetic towards the project that China is embarking on, right? And, like, and it's all because China refuses to accept at a fundamental level even the possibility that Hong Kong would vote amongst its own populace as a democracy for its own independence. It's not going to work. It's already a failure. And as it goes along and as China continues down this path that they're marching on, it will cost them more. It will be harder to do, and it will become more and more obvious that this particular aspect of the project is a failure as we go along. The majority of Quebec nationalism and pro-separatism seems to be settler colonialist in nature, though, yeah. But it's funny to see infighting with settler colonies, Canada, yeah. There is an outright Quebec Independence Party that took part in the election in 2019. Yep. China wants to unify with all of them. Look at the One China policy, yeah. They were looking too comfortable without the Chinese. That's fear of losing power. I think one part. Well, and Jeff, like, One China is part of the 100-year plan, yeah, and they should look at that. Every 5 years they redress the 100-year plan, and they should look at it. And I hope that when they look at it, they think to themselves, this is not working. Like, it's to me, it's very reminiscent of how, like, when communism began, there was a sort of theory in communism that said it would be that we would be done with religion, that religion would not be part of it, right? And that was part of the early days of communism, right? Like, we're going to be a stateless, moneylessness, religiousness society. Canada, John. What are you talking about? Yeah, perfect. But like modern day communists, like communists in the last 20, 30 years especially, no one talks that way anymore. No one is interested in eradicating religion in the borders of communist societies. Why? Because you have to fucking embark on like ethnic cleansing basically to do it, right? That you look at the people who are actually religious and actually want to hold on to their religious ideas and their religious spirituality and all of this, and they will fight to the death in order to prevent you from getting rid of it. And so anybody, any communist that wants to move forward with this idea of like, oh, we'll have a religiousless society, if you were a fundamentalist along those lines, you would be in favor of ethnic cleansing. You'd have to be, right? And so everybody bailed on it. Nobody espouses this. Nobody talks about this because it's a failure at the outset. It doesn't work. It doesn't work, right? And I feel that this exact same thing is going to be the conclusion for the Chinese in regards to Hong Kong. That eventually they will look at Hong Kong and they'll be like, this does not work. This whole like fundamentalist view of a one China policy is not working. And it's costing us more. It's losing us credibility, because it is. Like, I am extremely sympathetic towards China, and I always take a defensive posture in regards to China. But this is a mistake, objectively. Like, I can't make it anything other than a mistake. I can't put together in my mind, how is this anything other than a mistake? How is this anything other than an error, right? That in our fundamentalist zeal to enact a one China policy in this 100-year plan, when we are faced with something that is overtly and obviously an error, this is a huge error. How do we rectify that? How do we deal with that? And so my hope is that they will eventually come to this conclusion on their own. But they've already done so much damage. Like after this, the blowback from this, it's very difficult for me to see. And of course, the real true threat, the real reason you don't want an independence movement is that it can create a cascading effect. That's always the narrative, right? That if Hong Kong declares its independence, then like Taiwan will declare its independence totally, and then like, I don't know, let's go crazy. Shanghai will declare its independence, right? Or something like this, right? That if an independence movement is permitted to be successful, it could cascade in that way. But I just think that China's way bigger than this, right? Like Hong Kong is a population of 7 million people. China is a population of 1 billion people, right? I just think that they are going to conclude finally that this is an error, and it's an error brought about by fundamentalism, because fundamentalism itself is always an error. There's no reason to ever settle on fundamentalism. Like, fine to have a policy, right? Fine, but like, it's just not going to work. Anyway. Like this is gonna work. This has already worked. This is enormous. This is a complete reshaping of geopolitical politics moving forward. Like this, like already Westerners are trying to shit all over Belarus. And guys, like 2 weeks ago, I didn't really even know where Belarus was. I didn't know anything about Belarus 2 weeks ago. This scandal that propped up and it was like Belarus, I was like, Belarus? Where's Belarus? I like pride myself on being able to find places on the map. And like, I pride myself on like knowing kind of a little bit about every place in the world. And I was just like, Belarus? What's Belarus? It's Belarus, I guess. Minsk sound, okay. oh, let's learn about this. And I just like didn't know anything. And then I took one look at the Belt and Road Initiative, and I'm like, yeah, Belarus is actually like probably one of the most important places in Eastern Europe, certainly, right? Because of the Belt and Road Initiative. And then when you actually look into the economic history of Belarus, you find out that, oh, Belarus is actually like an economic powerhouse. They've got a stronger economy than most European nations. Like, they're doing great. And their primary allies, Russia, Iran, China. The trifecta of evil. What was that stupid shit that Bush was saying? The axis of evil. The axis of evil. Like they're cartoon villains instead of just like people who are trying to put two and two together. Ugh. Beautiful building, though. Don't you agree? Like, look at this beautiful building. I absolutely love this building. I wish I could find it on the map. Oh, that's why. What the future main museum of Russia's armed forces in Patriot Park will look like. So that probably was actually... Oh, buddy. Buddy. Oh, I know. Burfity burf. I know, buddy. Russia. You tell those Russians. Gotta look out for the Russians. What do you got, buddy? Milo, what do you got? Okay, thanks, buddy. You got him. There's like literally a tree outside that like starts to wave and he gets freaked out about that. I found a spot that I thought it was, and that's probably where it is going to go. Right? Yes, right here. So that's probably where it goes. It's just not built yet. Right? Seems right. I'm going to say yes. Wait until the tunnel under the Bering Strait is built? Yeah, let's... Yeah. This is going to be great. This is going to be great. Right? Like, just like, boop. Let it. I can see Russia from my house. Sarah Palin. God, we had so much fun with Sarah Palin, eh? We had so much fun with Sarah Palin. I gotta tell you, I look at Sarah Palin and I can't help but walk away from her time with us and be grateful. And be grateful that she was here. Just like, oh yeah, I can see Russia from my house. That by itself, right? That by itself. And yeah, like the tunnel, I wonder, tunnel under Bering Strait. Bering Strait crossing. Have they even started any? Hypothetical. There have been several proposals. The Intercontinental Peace Bridge. Yeah, that rolls right off the tongue. We're definitely going to call it that. In April 2007, Russian government officials told the press the Russian government will back a $65 billion plan by a consortium of companies to build a Bering Strait tunnel. I wonder if anything else has happened with this. You got Chinese experts proposing doing this. Oh yeah, that's cool. The trouble is that Alaska is America, and America will always fall back on its stupid, like... This is the reason why America... Okay, I'm in the closing minutes here, so I'm going to wrap up with this. This is... Because it always has to come back to the West, right? Like, we can critique all of this as much as we want, but it really always does come back to what's going to happen to America, because guess what? We are intrinsically tied to America, whether we like it or not. And... while China is building stuff like this, right? China's building stuff like this, you guys. Like, this is an enormous project. And once they finish these sorts of connections, you can see in the pale pink down here, this is like stuff that's not built. Like, once they get the road from Tehran to Ericara, I can't pronounce that properly. And then like up through here, right? Once they get that all built, it's going to be very difficult for America to disrupt things. Because even if they go and they disrupt something in Belarus, right? Well, they've got this secondary route over here, right? So it like, this is an amazing, like, majestic, high-level project that China has embarked on, and it's just, like, brilliant. It's an enormous building project. What's America building? What's America building? Anybody. Like, what is America building? Nothing. They're building nothing. Like, they're... Yeah, and like they don't build anything. They're like, literally Trump, the last president, was saying that they're gonna bring coal jobs back. And what are they building? A wall. Right? Like, so in 10 years, 20 years, right? Like, what's this gonna look like in 10, 20 years? Right? 10, 20 years, there's just, like, it's going to be all through Africa. They're going to have more stuff going on. Maybe they'll have found a way to get it into India, right? Which is actually quite difficult, because I don't think they have very good relations with Myanmar and Bangladesh generally. But, like, imagine if they did manage it. Imagine they get it down. And looks like they do have some kind of plan right here, right? Economic corridor, as they call it. So, like, what happens? They get into India, right? And they start working with India, and and all of the inroads and all this kind of stuff, and they're tied intrinsically, all this kind of stuff. And that could happen in 10, 20 years, while America is busy doing what? Doing what? Elon Musk is shooting rockets at Mars. Yeah. Yeah, they built a wall! Well, on that note, you guys, you're all doing really wonderfully out there. You're doing great. I know you are, okay? We're in high, ridiculous, stressful situations. Please like, please share, please subscribe. Tell all your friends, tell all your family. Leave a comment. Hit the buttons. Give me money. My Patreon's in the description. Give me some money. Good night, guys. I'll see you tomorrow. Good luck. We're going to need it.